and Andrew Pearce. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
The Home Secretary has told MPs she's determined to fix the problem of illegal migration, admitting the government's failed to control the UK's borders. It comes ahead of the release of the latest immigration statistics at 9:30.
And the Transport Secretary is to meet with the rail union boss Mick Lynch today. It follows an announcement by the RMT of even more strikes. Tens of thousands of rail workers will start this industrial action on the 13th of December.
Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, has vowed to treat the next general election as if it were a referendum. It follows a unanimous decision by the UK Supreme Court that another poll can't be held without the consent of Westminster.
And new figures have revealed a 50% increase, 50% in the number of parking tickets issued to motorists, with a record 30,000 fines a day. We're going to discover the reason for the rise and what you can do to challenge them.
See, I thought we were supposed to be clamping down on these cowboy parking ticket people. Let's get into that a little bit later on. Let us know your thoughts the usual ways via Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews.uk. And make sure you let us know where you're watching and listening to us from. Good morning to you. The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has admitted that the government's failed to control the UK's borders.
Hardly surprised she said that. Speaking to the Home Affairs Select Committee, she also blamed illegal migrants and people smugglers for the recent issues at Kent's Manston Processing Centre.
Well, it comes as the Home Office prepares to publish the country's immigration statistics later today.
Joining us now is the political commentator, Peter Spencer.
Good morning to you, Peter. Look, give us an overview, an assessment, if you will, of how the Home Secretary did yesterday, because she seemed under pressure at times and made some admissions that perhaps, you know, the Home Office wouldn't have wanted her to make.
Assessment of her performance, I would say absolutely appalling and indeed quite staggering. She gave the impression she didn't really know what's happening, what should be happening, or indeed even the legal backdrop to what the Home Office is supposed to be doing. I mean, it was an extraordinary performance. And that was quite apart from admitting that they'd lost control of the borders. Now, the Home Office is a very broad brief, okay, but you would think, given that migration is one of Suella Braverman's big beefs, that she would at least have mugged up on that particular topic, but it appeared not. As for admitting that they'd lost control of migration, well, that's a statement of the obvious. That said, it's worth remembering that only this week the CBI were begging both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, who many see as the Prime Minister in waiting, to allow more migration to fill huge gaps in the labour market.
Peter, she came under more pressure, arguably, from her own side, from Tory MPs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because there is the problem that if you're not going to leave people in detention centres, which of course you can't, then you have to put them in hotels, and the question is where. And of course you get a great deal of kickback because MPs very often do not particularly want a large number of migrants in hotels in their constituency. And of course, this whole NIMBY problem feeds into another problem which the government is currently facing, which is there was a threatened rebellion of around 50 Tory MPs about the idea of building more homes in the parts of the countryside where, again, local MPs don't want them. It has to be said that the Conservative Party currently is in extremely bad mood.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, that's on the front of the eye this morning that, you know, Rishi Sunak already this early on in his premiership facing a bit of a rebellion on this particular issue. But yesterday we heard about successful, popular Conservative MPs announcing that they're going to stand down at the next election. We've got this rebellion, as Andrew's pointing out there, a bit of blue on blue during that Home Affairs Select Committee meeting yesterday with the questioning going on. Is the Tory party ungovernable now?
It is certainly, well, I mean, face it, we've had 3 Conservative prime ministers in what feels like about a nanosecond, and they obviously are in a very, very discordant state. And of course, against that backdrop, there is the fact of the opinion polls showing a huge lead for the Labour Party, and it has to be said that Keir Starmer who has tended to look like he's just swallowed a wasp, with no disrespect to the man, all of a sudden looking rather cheerful and at ease with himself. And of course, yeah, plenty of Tory MPs are sort of reading the runes and thinking, right, well, that's my career out of the window, so I better start hunting around for something else, and pretty jolly soon.
And just back on the immigration, Peter, you didn't get a sense the Home Secretary had a solution, an answer, any idea really of how they're going to get to grips with the fact we've now got 40,000 migrants in hotels up and down the land. They're still pouring across the Channel on an almost daily basis. And when she was asked about legal means by which migrants could come into Britain, she didn't know if there were any and had to consult her officials. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, precisely. That's the whole point. And I come back to the thing that the Home Office itself is arguably somewhat ungovernable. All those years ago, John Reed said that it's not fit for purpose, so they hived off the justice bit, but it is still a monumentally broad brief. But I do come back to the point that Suella Braverman is big on migration, and really she should have had a lot more answers than she actually did. And I mean, as the story was coming through with the various answers, I thought, am I reading this wrong? Can she really be that? I mean, and it's worth remembering also that she has already had to resign once, or got the heave-ho, whichever it was, over being a bit slapdash about national security. And one wonders how long it'll be before she finds that she gets the heave-ho again for being a bit slapdash about her own job.
Yeah. Look, at 9:30 we get these immigration figures, which will be, I suppose, skewed a little bit this year because we have had this influx of Ukrainians, I think 150,000 or so of them, and 70,000 Hong Kongers, both fleeing persecution and war in those respective countries. But what will prompt the question, won't it, about what is an acceptable level of migration? Where do we want that figure to be? It's been a debate throughout the Conservative administration. It was down the last year on the year before. It will be, as I say, sort of artificially up this year, but that big debate has to be had again, doesn't it?
I suppose it does, yes. And of course, another factor which has lifted the numbers is the fact that we have had, although it's actually pretty parky now and pretty breezy, it has been an unusually clement summer and autumn. As a consequence, larger numbers than normally have managed to make it across the Channel in little boats. And there is something very weird about the system that they can claim asylum, but only if they're actually in UK, and there are no legal ways for them to get into the United Kingdom. And so that invites them to get onto little boats to come over here if they're that determined. And I do come back to the point about the Confederation of British Industry saying, look, we do need more people to fill gaps in agriculture, construction, and a host of other hospitality, host of other areas. And both the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition have rather ducked that question. But behind all this is the B word, Brexit. When we had free movement of people across Europe, where gaps in the labour market were filled, they no longer are to anything like the same extent. And therefore, there is a huge problem. I mean, one of the things that very often does happen is that people who have managed to make it across here find themselves locked in the system, which seems to take forever to sort out, and then they just slip off and work in, say, the construction industry for cash in hand, and their employers are very happy, and the buildings do actually get constructed. So the thing finds its own level anyway. But that doesn't change the fact, again, that there is a severe undercurrent of anxiety, particularly in pinch points like in Kent, where large numbers of people suddenly arrive and put a strain on the schools and the hospitals and all the rest of it. So it is a very inflamed debate, and the shows no sign whatever of going away.
And the Home Secretary yesterday acknowledging in some cases those applications taking 480 days to process. Extraordinary.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. Peter Spence, good to get your analysis this morning. Thank you very much indeed. A political commentator joining us from a very pink Cornwall there. Thank you. Now, a local authority in neighbouring Devon has launched legal action against the government over the use of hotels to house asylum seekers.
Torbay Council says plans to hand over a third hotel to migrants in Torquay would result in increased pressure on services.
Our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody has been to Torquay to find out more.
Calm seas off Torquay witnessed the international regatta, and whether it's red sails in the sunset or white sails at noon, it's always a charming picture.
The English Riviera has been the jewel in England's crown for years, entertaining holidaymakers from across the world. But there's a storm brewing. In recent weeks, 2 of Torquay's best-loved hotels have been requisitioned by the Home Office to house migrants fresh from the processing centre in Manston. Torbay Council thought that was it. They didn't expect a third hotel to be taken out of action. Torbay Council says it had a legitimate expectation that no other hotels in the area would be used. It also says that the Home Office hasn't taken into consideration the fact that this is a core tourism area. And they're also extremely concerned about the impact on children's services. The Esplanade Hotel in Paignton already houses migrants at a cost of £1.5 million a year. Of the 100 migrants that are said to be staying at the Esplanade Hotel here in Paignton, 20 of them have said that they're under the age of 18. And that creates another problem. It means that Torbay Council's Children's Services Department needs to get involved. Every person under the age of 18 on Torbay Council's radar requires monitoring, helping, safeguarding, and that costs. So when moves were made to turn a third hotel into an asylum seekers hostel, the council issued a pre-proceedings letter to the Home Office through their solicitors, demanding the third hotel should not be brought into operation. And just this week, the Home Office granted a stay of execution. Good news for the caretakers of the Maycliffe Hotel, who'd been told to pack their bags.
We just needed that extra time more than anything, just so we could find something suitable.
In a statement, the Home Office said, while we accept that hotels do not provide a long-term solution, they do offer safe, secure and clean accommodation, and we're working hard with local authorities to find appropriate accommodation during this challenging time. But safe for who? Roxanne and Miles had been told they had to leave before the migrants arrived because it wouldn't be safe for their children. They're concerned now for the elderly residents who live on the road.
Everybody needs to be bear in mind, they have a duty of responsibility not only to the new people arriving in the country, but also to the people and the residents of the local area who are already.
The halting of the plans is welcome news in Torquay, but no one knows how long the hiatus will last, if at all. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Well, the rail union boss Mick Lynch is to meet the government later this morning after the RMT announced another fresh wave of rail strikes, this time over the Christmas period.
Transport Secretary Mark Harper has said ahead of the meeting that he will not negotiate with Mick Lynch, and the government cannot afford inflation pay rises.
Well, joining us now is Steve Headley, former RMT Assistant General Secretary. Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning. Thank you for the invite.
A pleasure. So you're talking to the Transport Secretary, Mark Harper. What's the point of talking? The strikes are definitely going to happen, aren't they? You've already agreed to that. What are you hoping that could come out of these talks?
Well, obviously, it's better to talk than actually to go on strike and put the strikes on. But the fact is that Harper has already made it clear that there's no more money on the table. So unless there's a change of mind, I believe the strikes will go ahead. And I think that the reality is now that the strikes need to be escalated in order to win. There need to be more days of action, not just a couple of days per month. And they need to be coordinated with all the other workers who are suffering exactly the same fate. Inflation's rampant, mortgage prices have gone through the roof, and people need a pay rise.
Is the fact you're escalating the strike a reflection of the fact clearly your previous industrial actions haven't worked?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think the whole strategy of taking a couple of days a month is not being effective, and I think that that needs to be coordinated. It needs to be over a longer period of time. We need a substantial piece of industrial action, and it needs to be coordinated with other workers. So I think that would be the successful tactic. I don't really understand the the tactic of taking a couple of days and then waiting a month and then cancelling strikes so people can go and sell poppies and then cancelling strikes for so-called intensive talks. The membership were absolutely livid when that happened. It's in danger of losing momentum, and I hope Lynch and the leadership actually do what the members want and put on a substantial piece of industrial action to get the government to the table in a meaningful way.
The fact, though, that, I mean, as Andrew said, escalating, a lot of people just worked from home, didn't they, during previous strikes? And the fact that you're targeting the Christmas period is really going to hurt ordinary people. I hate the phrase ordinary people, but people who want to be with their families, people who haven't been with their families for the last few years because of COVID. The hospitality sector, I mean, we've had the hospitality sector saying 2 lost Christmases due to COVID. These are losses the hospitality industry can ill afford. The Centre for Economics and Business Research said these strikes are going to cost £1 billion to the British economy. I mean, it's really hurting ordinary working people.
Well, I accept it's going to hurt businesses, but it's not going to stop ordinary people getting home for Christmas. It isn't Christmas Day, Boxing Day. Well, no, of course it's not. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And I mean, I think it's, a bit rich that people who don't care about working class people, how they get on most of the year, are suddenly really concerned about them because the RMT is strike on Christmas. What absolute hypocrisy. The fact is, if it's costing that much money, if it's costing £1 billion, then get the pay rise. It's only cost a fraction of that. So if the government want a solution and they want to save money, the solution is simple. They just need to give a pay rise that lies with inflation.
They simply can't set a precedent and give you what you're asking for because, as you well know, every other union will then come out and ask for the same. And as you described in your first answer, the country's facing an extremely difficult future. We're heading into recession, interest rates and inflation all soaring. We can't afford to give everyone what they want at the moment.
So we need a massive redistribution of wealth in this country. We can't have a position where a few percent of the population are taking 46% of the wealth. That has to stop. There needs to be massive taxation on people over £100,000 a year. There needs to be massive taxation on profiteering oil companies and profiteering petrol companies.
What's this got to do with the railway?
We need to fill loopholes in tax. We need to stop people offshoring their tax to the Cayman Islands.
Yep.
And then there'll be enough money. There'll be enough money for everybody to have a pay rise in this country. And by the way, finally, inflation is not being fueled by pay rises. Inflation is being fueled by profiteering companies. There's scalping going on at the minute. And what scalping means is that not only are people making profits, they're using the energy crisis to make excessive profits. And that's happening right across the piece. So the reality is that workers are being forced to take action. They can't have the position where many workers, public sector workers, over the past decade have lost about 20 to 25% of their basic pay in real terms. So that's the reason, not only the RMT, but unions right across the piece, from the nurses for the first time in their history, to the Union of Communication Workers, to the University College Union, right across the piece, workers are being forced to take action just to keep pace with inflation.
Mr. Headley, of course, you've chosen Christmas for the latest wave of strikes to inflict maximum damage, to get maximum publicity. And Isabel's quite right, isn't she? This could have a serious effect on people's Christmas plans because, by your own admission, the strike's not, it has to be effective if it's going to work. So that's why you've chosen Christmas.
Well, when would you suggest that people?
Well, I would suggest you don't go on strike at all. Well, I would suggest you don't go on strike at all. You just asked me a question. I'm telling you what I said. I wouldn't go on strike at all.
Is that what people should do?
Yeah, I wouldn't go on strike at all. How much have your members lost, Mr. Headley? How much have your members lost?
Is that what should happen?
How many thousands of pounds have they lost?
Sorry?
How many thousands of pounds in wages have your members lost?
Well, how many thousands of pounds in wages have our members lost by a 20%?
You don't want to answer the question. You're not going to answer the question.
I'm answering the question, but
no. Well, I've asked you a question. How much have they lost?
And they're prepared to lose a lot more. Right. In order to get justice.
Well, the danger is, though, that they'll lose so much that they'll just deter people from using the trains at all. People already think they can't rely on the service, and this could end up being the end of the railways.
Oh, for goodness sake, really? Is that what you're going to come out with? This will be the end of the railways. Are you actually serious?
Well, that's what the government says. Strikes put the future of the entire industry in jeopardy. Not my words. Those are the words of Mark Harper, the Transport Secretary.
All right. Come on. Can you ask reasonable questions? This is going to be the end of the railway. The railway is the most efficient, most safe. Actually,
how is it efficient if people can't rely on the service?
The greenest way of travel. Well, they can't rely on the service.
It should be.
The government aren't prepared to invest in it. They're not prepared to give the public the service they want. They've got the most expensive railway in the whole of Europe, and that's because it's a privatised system. If they renationalised it, they could cut prices for everyone. They could invest in the railway. They could give people pay rises in line with inflation and give job security. But they're refusing to do any of that because it's ideologically not what they want.
Mr. Headley, it would take years to renationalise the railways. It would take years to renationalise. Mr. Headley, it would take years to renationalise the rationalise, and it would also cost billions of pounds.
Rubbish. They renationalised the banks when they all went bust within a few days. They nationalised, or they threatened to nationalise. They seized all the assets of Russian companies. If they put a bill through Parliament, if the political will was there, they could do it tomorrow.
Well, Steve Headley, I think we'll leave it there. We'll agree to disagree on some of those. Former RMT Assistant General Secretary, good to get your thoughts this morning. Thank you.
Let's hope he's not planning to go away for Christmas.
Well, exactly, yeah.
To go bye-bye.
Well, yes, exactly, or in his car. Listen, we're going to talk about university lecturers and teachers now, because guess what? They are going on strike as well. Industrial unrest continuing to spread across the country in those disputes over pay, jobs and conditions.
Picket lines are going to be mounted outside universities and schools as unions edge closer to coordinated industrial action. It'll be one of the biggest walkouts of the year.
Our reporter Theo Chicomba has the details.
Today belongs to the union. Today belongs to the members. I am UCU and proud, and I really hope you are too.
This was the moment tens of thousands of lecturers had been waiting for. A nationwide strike set to be the biggest ever to hit UK universities as they walk out over pay and conditions.
People are realising that they won't be able to afford to pay their bills, and that's a situation that affects students as much as lecturers. We're seeing that staff at universities, a lot of whom are casualised on very short contracts, effectively 0 hours in some cases, are struggling a great deal, as are many contracted members of staff, and students are also struggling. We're seeing that as lecturers or as people working in professional services.
From today, over 70,000 staff from 150 universities will strike over 3 days, potentially halting the studies of more than 2.5 million students. But what's the mood on campus?
When the staff get paid more, the students get a better degree. Because obviously, when you're learning in a learning environment, if the person teaching you is in kind of a horrible situation, they're not getting paid enough, they're working crazy hours without enough pay, they're getting the pensions cut. It's just the entire environment's just not what a university should be. So, I mean, the kind of outcome for students, I think, from my perspective anyway, should be that we want staff to be on proper contracts and paid more.
Another concern is pensions. Universities UK, which represents 140 institutions, say pension contributions were already at the very limit of affordability and argue a period of stability in the economy is needed.
The view that we have is that we need to see how fragile the current surplus situation is. Things are fairly strange financially at the moment, but if that was to be something that continued, we would want to know what we could do to improve the pension scheme. It's not an unreasonable question from the union, and we're working very hard with them to try and see what can be done.
Campuses across the country will be eerily quiet today as staff head to the picket lines in what the UCU describes as a strike to defend their jobs and take back their pensions. Theo Chicomba, GB News.
Oh dear, it's a bit rich, isn't it, all of this, when all the universities are sort of barely in contact with their students anyway.
And don't forget, during the pandemic, it was online tuition, if you were lucky.
That's what I mean, yeah.
And the students, weren't they still paying accommodation costs?
Full whack.
Full whack, and now they're going on strike. Will anybody at the university, i.e. the students, will they notice?
Yeah. Probably
if
not
they're
too
on
busy
strike.
drinking. Is there
Well,
anything like when I was at university?
You went to university. You lived that hedonistic,
Yeah,
decadent
I had
lifestyle.
8
I never
hours
went
of
to uni.
contact lectures a week. That was
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Lots of fun in between. But
Yes.
yeah, that's where the wine addiction kicked in. And actually, that leads me on to the next story, because this I've spotted in the Mail this morning. And they've done a survey in Verona, the University of Verona, about what your choice of wine says about your personality type. What's your favourite tipple?
White.
Yep.
And I absolutely love something like a poulet fusé.
OK, that says fancy to me, but I
Does
don't know
it?
if that's one of the categories. Apparently, you can tell if you're agreeable, conscientious, an extrovert, neurotic or open from the type of wine you like. So those who are emotionally stable, like a full-bodied red, such as a Shiraz or a Cabernet Sauvignon. And it goes on. I mean, I don't know if I like sort of delving too much into my personality. I like a Merlot myself, but I don't know what that means.
OK, a decent red. Any decent red will do for
red
you.
this
A
time of
bad
year.
red gives
Nothing
you the
worse.
worst hangover.
Well, all
and a bad
rubbish
white
wine
makes you very acidic.
Yes.
I
And
can't drink
there's something about acidic wines here. Italian researchers found extroverts tend to prefer acidic wines, such as champagne or Chianti.
Well, that shows I'm not extrovert then, because I can't stand acidic wine, and I've given up Sauvignon.
Agreeable people enjoy a complex bouquet, such as a Californian Cabernet.
Right.
So let us know what's your favourite wine and what that means for you. Or indeed, let us know what you think about all of these strikes going on. It's a bit bleak, isn't it? Winter
Really
of
bleak. And I
discontent.
detect the unions coming together in a coordinated way as part of a campaign to bring down the government. Steve Headley had a complete rant about the government, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
He was ranting more about the government than the rights of train
he sounded
workers.
like Sir Keir Starmer rather than union.
With a bit more passion than Keir Starmer.
We'll take a break now. After that, we'll be taking a look at compulsive buying disorder. It's actually shopping addiction, but it's a really big problem. And this, of course, exacerbated by all the Black Friday sales going on at the moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a sec.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 6:28. Still to come on the programme this morning.
We're going to be speaking to the Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove as the Prime Minister faces his first major rebellion from his own MPs over the major new housing targets.
Then at 7:20, we'll be live from Qatar after another day of shocks and surprises at the World Cup.
Get in touch in all the usual ways. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet @gbnews.
Now, Black Friday has cemented itself as a key date in our calendars over the past decade as many look for the best bargains during the run-up to Christmas.
However, some people are raising awareness about a more sinister side to the annual shopping event, as Black Friday sales can apparently trigger those with addictive traits.
Yeah, I think this is really easy to trivialise, but this is a genuine issue. We're joined now by former shopping addict and founder of Compassionate Voices, Sharon Bull, and joined by addiction therapist Pamela Roberts. Look, first of all, I want to go to you, Sharon, because, you know, we're encouraged as a society to go out and spend if we're feeling down, go and get a little pick-me-up, buy something new, bombarded by adverts everywhere we look. But it can become a problem. How did it escalate for you?
Well, if I can just say that my shopping addiction was triggered by mental health issues. For 30 years, I struggled with severe depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and that's what triggered the shopping addiction. And the problem is, shopping addiction it is trivialised. It's not taken as seriously as any other addiction. So it's kind of been a silent addiction, and it's just recent. It's only recently that it's had a name: compulsive buying disorder.
Itself with you. I mean, did you get yourself into big debt, and were you secretive and having to hide your wares? What was it like?
I got into massive debt. This was sort of 2011 when it was at its peak. I got into £50,000 worth of debt. Oh. I lost my home, and I lost almost everything. And I actually almost I nearly took my life. So I tried to take my life. And the thing is we talk about mental health having a stigma. So does debt. People are ashamed, and that's why it does cause suicide is very much linked to debt.
Sharon, can I ask, not trivialising this, what were you addicted to buying?
Anything. But generally, because it was low self-esteem, so just as an example, I, like most people, would go into a shop and pick up 2 or 3 dresses, go into the changing room, try on those dresses, go and then buy one. I would buy all 3, and it was all on cards. And at that time, without sort of pulling banks down, but at that time, they didn't question. If you reached your limit on a card, you only had to call the bank and go, can I have an additional amount? And they would do it.
Yeah, and look, you would get hooked, I suppose, on that dopamine hit, that feel-good that you would get once you made those purchases.
Exactly the same as any other addiction, exactly the same, no different. I'd get the high, the shame, and of course it got so bad that I tried to take my life in the end.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thankfully for me and my family, I didn't, but that doesn't apply to everyone.
How did you wean yourself off this habit?
Wasn't easy, but I live a totally different life now. So I am the founder of Compassionate Voices CIC, and I literally, because a lot of it with me was I was so ashamed I wouldn't speak out. And that's the problem with most mental health issues. People are so ashamed to speak out. So my passion is to get people talking, and that's what my charity's about, is bringing it is ladies and young girls, but it's bringing ladies and young girls together, sharing their stories and knowing they're not on their own.
It's interesting, very female problem, you believe. I want to ask Pamela Roberts about all this, because I suppose, like other addictions, if you've got a gambling addiction, look, equally hard to crack addictions, obviously, but you can avoid going into gambling shops. You can avoid going onto the website. Same with drink. You can avoid going into pubs. You can avoid buying alcohol. But Pamela, if you've got a shopping addiction, you can't really avoid going into a shop ever again, can you? It's much harder to get away from the constant bombardment.
It is, you're so right, especially with things like Black Friday and sale periods and all these sort of things, birthdays. Anything can be a trigger. But there are ways of then reassessing how people actually shop. We can then look at essential shopping, getting support with shopping. If it's online shopping, not filling carts, only having one screen open at a time. So there's all sorts of little tricks that we can introduce through therapy, getting support from treatment centres, to learn a different shopping. Similar with any addiction, really, you just have to relearn to live life. We know that addiction is driven by emotion or the lack of being able to process emotions, and it becomes a way to self-soothe. So if we can change the shopping behaviour, then we can look at the underlying triggers, the emotional triggers, build up an emotional resilience and rely less on external things to feel better about living life in this sometimes very stressful environment.
Yeah. Good advice. Pamela Roberts, Sharon Bull, really interesting to talk about a sort of unspoken addiction, really, especially around this time of year.
Can I just say before I go, Andrew, this is so surreal for me because I watch you and Kevin faithfully when you're doing paper reviews.
Very kind.
It's my morning.
She's much
He's
nicer.
upgraded.
Isabel's much nicer than Kevin. Much nicer, better looking too. Very good to meet you.
Yeah, you'll find him here every Thursday, Sharon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
And talking of the papers, after the break, we've been going through the papers, not with Kevin, but with the fabulous Freddie Gray from The Spectator and Nikki Hodgson.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back at 6:37. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Isabel, Webster and Andrew Pearce. Let's take a look at your Thursday morning newspaper front pages.
The eye focuses on Rishi Sunak's leadership as he faces another battle with unhappy MPs who claims he needs a clear agenda.
The Daily Mail reveals motorists are being fined 30,000 parking tickets every single day.
And the Daily Express focuses on a groundbreaking new dementia drug which could be ready as early as next year.
So that's a selection of some of your front pages. Let's delve inside the papers now with the Deputy Editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, fresh from his awards party last night for The Spectator, and journalist and author Nikki Hodgson. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Freddie, can we start with you? Front of the Times this morning, focusing on Nicola Sturgeon. Probably, I think, the result she really wanted secretly yesterday.
Well, I think so, yes. I mean, there was a big rumour going around that she was going to resign yesterday in the wake of this announcement. But of course,
never resign.
She'll never resign.
Has to be dragged screaming
exactly.
and shouting out of that.
I think it's just hope. The hope is always that she will, but she never will. So the Times goes with court deals blow to Scots independence, which I think was expected. I think we all knew this was going to happen. But the SNP are going to turn the next election into a de facto referendum.
Which works quite well, because then they can just distract from their record on everything else.
Well, exactly. And what it's good news for is the Labour Party. Everything seems to be good news for the Labour Party at the moment. And that they will get a lot of SNP votes in the next election. And, you know, if the SNP win a significant majority again, do they declare that as a victory for independence? I think they probably do. And I think we're getting into a Canada-style situation, which is what everybody's always warned of, where we are in a never-endum, as people call it. And
I heard Ian Blackford, the SNP leader in Parliament, yesterday, Freddie, talking about it was a huge victory for the SNP at the last general election. But what they never say is there's never been a majority of votes for nationalism at an election in Scotland. Nationalists, but there's not over 50% for vote people who want independence.
no, I think that's exactly the point. They will never have that majority. Well, they might in the future, but at the moment they don't, and they sound increasingly desperate, I think.
Yeah.
But the problem is they still have that purchase on the electorate.
What did you think about the result yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, it's damning for Nicola. What's she going to campaign for next? It's like, she spent how many years trying to get this to happen, and where does she go from here, I suppose? But I think, you know, when you look at the latest YouGov polls of people, they just aren't over that half that they need to get it passed, even if they did have another referendum. So I think what will be interesting is, her manoeuvring now, and for her as a politician, because she's invested so much time and effort. This has been kind of like the thing she stood for. How will people feel about her because she can't get it done, if you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Do you not sense, Freddie, we're coming towards the end of the Sturgeon reign? She's been a hugely successful politician. But if she can't deliver on this, what's the point? And there are all sorts of people swirling around her ankles now thinking it could be me.
I think your hopes are in vain, Andrew. I think she will carry on. She'll battle on for a little bit longer.
Oh, yeah, a few more years.
I think a few more years. We've got another generation of Nicola Sturgeon.
Well, what we have got the back of, Nikki, which is also on the front of the Times this morning, is this limit on liquids that we can take onto aeroplanes. I have to say I cheered when I read this yesterday.
Yes, I did too. It's a bit of good news for a change, isn't it? Yeah, so basically the ban on air passengers carrying more than 100 mils of liquids, which has been a bane of our lives when we've been in airport travel for 15 years now, is about to be ditched. The reason it's being ditched is because there's a more advanced CT security scanner that's being introduced in airports. It's already been trialled in Ireland and was, they were able to kind of see everything that they needed to see, and it drastically reduced airport waiting times. So, I mean, it's hard to remember a time when we used to just kind of sail through security, but we did used to do that. And remember, the 100 mil rule was only introduced in 2006 because of a terrorist plot which involved people disguising explosives in liquids. I suppose the concern will be, well, is our security good enough so that somebody isn't going to try it again? That's the only kind of
I've never really understood what the fixation with aeroplanes was. I mean, you can go on a train without having your liquids checked. You can go on any other form of transport. We'll be in large public places. You can go to stadiums, whatever it might be. There's always a risk when you're in a crowd of something like this happening. But we just got fixated on this system, aeroplanes, because of 2 or 3 crazy individuals.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a consistent policy, definitely, across travel or, big events. So I just think it'll be really interesting to see, they've got to install the technology. That's going to be the challenge, really, and see how quickly they can do that. But, they're saying that for the Department of Transport is saying that for big airports, these scanners will have to be installed by the summer of 2024.
And it's not even universal, though, is it? You go to some countries and they don't ask you to do it.
No. I mean, I think it was more popular in certain countries, and then they started to whittle down, and we'd be left with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was in Israel and they didn't ask me to do it.
And no, I don't think they do.
That's a very secure country.
I was always the person that thought I'd got all my liquids out, and there would be a robe bottle in my bag would be taken to the side, and I was
Chanel.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, always a nightmare because I'd always be late for the plane, and I'd be the one hanging around with screaming children, and I'm like,
and if you've got kids, there's always something that you have that's liquid it's paying.
I'm just pleased that I thought masks were going to be it was going to be something you're just going to have to do on planes for the next 20 years.
What do you think happened with all the confiscated booty? Do we really think they got tipped down an airport drain?
No, because isn't it a bit like, with TfL, all the things that are found on the train, they go into a repository, and if people don't claim them within a time frame, then the staff can buy them at a reduced price.
Well, I'd rather that happen than nothing at all. And maybe the money could go to charity.
Yes, that would be
nice.
But I don't know.
Come on, what sort of utopia is this?
It's a bit of good news. It's not.
But it is a bit of good news.
Not everything's going right.
Well, let's get miserable again, Freddie. This is motorists being hit with parking tickets. And you know what? I thought we were supposed to be clamping down on this. I thought in February there was cheers when the government said all these cowboy, clampers and parking ticket Nazis are going to be sorted out.
I think this maybe is a bit of good news disguised, and I think the clamping down is going to happen.
OK, good.
I think the government are determined to do something about it. I think what is ridiculous, and everybody knows it's ridiculous, is this selling of the lists to these cowboy operators who then pursue drivers and people who park their car, people who make the crime of parking their car, relentlessly. And, I mean, 2.7 million tickets to drivers between April and June. I think something over £1 billion last year. I think it's going to stop. It's got to stop. We've got to stop the UK government using cowboy operators to hassle the public. Everybody hates it. It's just something that needs to go away.
Why do governments and councils hate motorists so much?
Very good question. The environmentalist lobby, I think.
But those wretched cycle highways have probably added to pollution in some of our motorists. Yes, because the cars all have to slow down, and then they're nose to bumper, exhaust spewing out, and most of the cyclists I see aren't on the cycle highways anyway. They're on the pavement.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. No, I think
through red lights.
The government is... well, I think the government knows that motorists are a good voted bloc.
Yeah.
If you can say to them, we're on your side, that's a winning argument.
It's cash cow. They're just generating revenue. That's why. They don't hate motorists. They're just making money from it. And whilst that works, then why would they change it?
Yeah.
Nikki, can we talk about Alzheimer's? This really genuinely is absolutely brilliant news. So many of us affected by dementia. I know was it your father?
My dad.
Your father, yeah, my grandmother having had it. And they say this cure drug could be available from next year.
Yeah, so they've discovered a drug called lecanemab. Well, they discovered it about 20 years ago, but they've finally done lots of investigations to it. And they found that it's reduced brain decline in people with mild dementia. So a world clinical trial of 1,700 patients found that it cleared the toxic amyloid protein, which is the thing that they look for in the brain, and it slows symptoms progression by about 27% for 18 months. So it's not a cure, it's not a permanent solution, but it's something that will buy people time at the beginning of having a diagnosis. The problem is, for the NHS, of course, that the way you decide if somebody would be suitable for it is quite difficult to do, because at the minute you need to either do a PET scan or a lumbar puncture, and only 2% of patients, that only reaches 2% of patients. So what we will need to do is get better at rolling those diagnostic tools out to then see who's suitable to receive the treatment. But it is a breakthrough. There hasn't been anything found in the past 20 years that actually pushes the boundaries of the medicine that can help people. And I think for anyone who has either suffered or had a family member, just the idea of having that bit more time will be really welcome.
Is it going to be hugely expensive?
They don't say it's necessarily going to be that more expensive.
I bet it is.
I mean, it's going to cost money, isn't it, obviously, and the NHS can't afford much. But the idea is that it'll be about 105,000 people that will be potentially suitable for it within the NHS. So the expensive bit will be kind of getting the scheduling on board to do those diagnostic tests. It's not necessarily the drug.
But because ultimately it would save the NHS money.
Obviously,
fewer carers.
because Alzheimer's is, it's just such a massive issue now.
Yeah,
so,
it is. It really is.
Yeah. Talking about the NHS and medical things, Freddie, this is a really interesting sort of attempt to reform GPs, naming and shaming those that are not providing the service us patients really want, front of the telegraph. They're on a bit of a crusade, aren't they, at the moment?
Yes, I think it's good news all round, isn't it, at the moment? We're going to crack down on cowboy motorist punishers, and GPs are going to be named and shamed, except for, I would say, the problem is there's no clarity on how the GPs are going to be named and shamed, just that there'll be some sort of public record of their performance. But I think everybody knows that GP surgeries are failing, and nobody's fixed it. The idea is it will relieve pressure on A&E, which everybody needs.
But GP surgeries are ghost towns at weekends, often ghost towns after 6 p.m.
Well, the systems are ridiculous. I don't know how yours... Mine works on a sort of lottery thing where you kind of call up at 7.
Yeah.
And if you get through, you can get an appointment.
7. There's no one answering the phone at 7.
Yeah. Well, they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everybody knows there needs to be some relief on A&E. If we improve the performance of GP surgeries, that might happen, but there's no real clarity on how they do it. Steve Barclay does not provide the clarity today.
The Health Secretary, he's on the warpath, isn't he? Because he's trying to get rid of a lot of pen-pushing bureaucrats in the NHS. Hooray to that. and this is part of his campaign to try and make the NHS work for the people.
And apparently this is a model that's being copied from education, the sort of idea of reporting failing systems and, I suppose, teachers, and I suppose they're now applying that to doctors. But doctors at the moment do feel a little bit like everybody's turning on them, don't they?
Well,
it feels a little bit like they've been under siege, because every week there is another story about GPs are not there, GPs are not present, GPs are not delivering on targets. You know, it's difficult to know how much they have had control over some of the policies that have come in allegedly to protect them by, you know, kind of more senior leaders. But I think one of the issues is that so many people, and I'm one of those people too, are just kind of outsourcing their medical care to private GP services if they can. I'm 7 months pregnant. I need to see a doctor if I need to see one. So I'm doing that. But what's happening is that, you know, you see the private doctor and then they send the notes through to the GP, and then that's got to be kind of a match of, you know, there's got to be some kind of coalition working there. But I think, you know, that's not a good thing to see this kind of slide into private care just because the system isn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we talk about Boohoo? This is the conditions being described and revealed in a Times investigation, Nikki. This is the fashion organisation, incredibly cheap goods. And obviously, you know, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. What have people been saying about the conditions at Boohoo warehouses?
Yeah, so, I mean, we've obviously had for years reports about sweatshops in other countries, but what this is talking about is the Boohoo warehouses in Britain, where conditions are absolutely appalling. The Times did an investigation into this and kind of exposed the situation where people are, they were working in 32-degree heat. They were collapsing in the aisles. There were complaints of racism and sexual harassment. There was no accommodation when they suffered personal injuries at work. So it just sounds like, yeah, an extension of the sweatshop culture here in Britain, which is kind of why it's shocking to us. We should obviously be shocked about sweatshop conditions as well. But you're completely right. The fast fashion, there's a price to pay, and it might not be you as the consumer, but it is the people that are working for these organisations.
Yeah, I suppose the pressure, you know, we're all seeing it, aren't we, with Black Friday, that the pressure is for all of these companies to have cheaper and cheaper deals, and people just want new things all the time for as little money as possible. Quality questionable, but, you know, working conditions absolutely atrocious in modern Britain.
Well, exactly. I mean, I don't understand how this doesn't, you know, break lots of labour laws in the UK. I think it probably does. But, you know, it's just kind of shone a light on the fact that if it's happening there, it will be happening in other workplaces. I mean, we know it's well documented what goes on in Amazon warehouses, for example. And at this time of year, thinking about purchasing things up in the run up to Christmas, you know, it's very timely that it's come out now.
Yeah, Freddie?
I made the stupid mistake of investing in Boohoo.
Did you?
Yeah, somebody told me that it's going to be the safest thing you can do is buy shares. I don't often buy shares, but it's been a disaster. It's gone down massively.
Well, the share price went down. It's gone down as a result of this Times investigation.
Yeah, I've given up on it.
It's gone down even more.
Don't
check your investment because it may be.
Boohoo had disgusting ads on the tube, so I always sort of slightly hated them. No, I think all the online economy, you know, we don't see the suffering that goes on behind the online economy. So I think these stories are helpful. And, I mean, Amazon has improved its working conditions a bit, so hopefully Boohoo will too.
Invested in them as well?
No, I wish I had.
Yes, you'd have done a bit better.
Done a bit better, although not of late.
I'm not
of late.
as a stockbroker here. But
we should come up with a fund together.
Yeah,
oh, gosh.
Absolutely.
The breakfast fund.
Yeah, OK, listen, on that note, Freddie Gray and Nikki Hodgson will say goodbye for now. More from both of them just after 7:30. I just want to reflect some of the views we've had coming in already this morning to me and to Andrew. This on Channel Migrant. Sue in Lincolnshire, thank you for getting in touch this morning, says, couldn't asylum seekers go to the British embassies to seek legal entry into the UK? That's if they're legal. I still didn't understand how they can afford to pay such huge sums of money to cross in boats if they are so hard done by. And I suppose this is in response to Suella Braverman's admission yesterday that there aren't really any legal routes in for those who are genuinely seeking refuge in this country unless there is a specific country programme to that country. Stephen says, I'm sick of the lack of political will to deal with this. Nigel in Weymouth says, we need to let people know that there is a legitimate route. Go to the nearest British embassy, same point there. So look, keep those thoughts coming in. We'll try and reflect them throughout the course of the morning.
Yeah. And after the break, we'll have more on all the big stories of the day, and we'll be finding out what fans make of the potential sale of Manchester United.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Another spell of rain to come tomorrow. It won't last too long, but it's going to be heavy and accompanied by some gusty winds. We have Met Office yellow warnings that have been issued. Low pressure has been dominating through this week, bringing spells of wet and windy weather. This is the one that's going to bring some wet and windy weather tomorrow, but it's not with us yet. We've still got these weather fronts bringing a spell of rain across the Northern Isles through this evening and plenty of showers packing on behind. Heavy, even thundery showers across Wales and southwest England, some hail mixed in as well, and some blustery, gusty winds. Largely dry through this evening and overnight across central and eastern parts. It will turn a bit chilly, but there's going to be enough of a breeze to stop too much in the way of frost. Temperatures generally dropping down to about 6 to 4 Celsius. A bright start then on Thursday, a bit of a chill in the air, but some sunshine across many parts. But here comes that next area of rain, a spell of heavy rain and really gusty winds for Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, a wind warning in place here, and then that narrow band of heavy rain for Wales and southwest England around the middle part of the day before that moves into the Midlands and southeast England later on. Ahead of that, mostly dry, and behind it, sunshine and showers. Temperatures, again, 10 to maybe 13 Celsius in the south, but certainly feeling cooler when that rain comes along. It could cause some disruption, certainly the potential for further flooding. Those gusty winds suddenly whipping up as well. Tends to get out of the way during the evening, and then we're, again, just left with a fair few showers, but they do tend to fade. And Friday looks like being one of the drier days of this week in some parts of the UK. A fine, bright, sunny day. It won't be as windy either. Still a few showers for parts of Western England and Wales, but they'll be pretty well scattered. Quite a few showers for Western Scotland, but many places won't see a shower on Friday, have some sunny spells, and temperatures will be about average, ranging from 10 to maybe 12 or 13 Celsius in the south. Goodbye.
The Home Secretary admits the government has failed to control the United Kingdom's borders.
Good morning. It is just before 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 24th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Andrew Pearce. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Suella Braverman has told MPs she's determined to fix the problem of illegal migration, admitting the government has failed to control the country's borders. It comes ahead of the release of the latest immigration statistics this morning.
The Transport Secretary will meet with rail union boss Mick Lynch today. It follows an announcement by the RMT that tens of thousands of rail workers will start striking on the 13th of December. The former RMT Assistant General Secretary, Steve Headley, told us earlier that the government still have time to solve the situation quickly.
The fact is, if it's costing that much money, if it's costing £1 billion, then get the pay rise. It's only cost a fraction of that.
And Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has vowed to treat the next general election as if it were a referendum. It follows a unanimous decision by the UK Supreme Court that another poll can't be held without the consent of the Westminster Parliament.
And new figures have revealed a 50% increase in the number of parking tickets issued to motorists, with a record 30,000 fines per day. We'll discover the reason for the rise and what you can do to challenge them.
Get in touch in the usual way via Twitter or email gbviews@gbnews, and make sure to let us know where you're watching and listening to us from.
Well, welcome to the programme, and I'm very pleased to welcome to our programme this morning, straight away, the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities himself, Michael Gove. Good morning to you. I want to ask you, first of all, about a story specific to you, to your portfolio as a Levelling Up Secretary. This issue with trying to get through these reforms to housing, urgently needed by this country, something that we both agree on, absolutely. But you're having big problems persuading your own party on this. 50 MPs creating a wrecking amendment to this, and 8 of them former cabinet members.
Yes, I wouldn't characterise the approach of my colleagues in quite that way. We all know that the current planning system needs to change, and MPs want to make sure that when we have new houses, they're built in the right places. They also, quite rightly, wanted to make sure that we prioritise development on brownfield land, and that when new houses are built, that the infrastructure is there, the additional schools, hospitals, roads, and so on. So I think those MPs who've signed this amendment simply want to work with the government in order to ensure that as we reform the planning system, that we take account of their community's concerns and also their concerns about the environment. So their approach is a constructive one, and I want to work with them in order to get this legislation right.
Mr Gove, if there was a poll suggesting barely 1 in 10 people under the age of 50 would vote Conservative recently, if the government doesn't crack down and start building new houses, affordable new housing, you're never going to get those people voting for you.
Well, I think that irrespective of the polls, it's just absolutely a moral issue that we need to make sure that there are more people who are living in homes that they can own, more people who are renting, living in warm, decent, safe and secure homes. So there are a variety of changes that we're making in order to both increase the number of homes that are being built and also to ensure that people who are in rented accommodation have their rights protected.
But are you just putting party ahead of country in all of this? Because Labour have made clear that they would vote through your bill, that they'd support you on this. It would go through Parliament without a problem. It's just that you don't want all the awkward headlines and those MPs exposing rifts within an already troubled party.
No, I want to work with people across the House of Commons in order to improve the situation for people who want to get on the property ladder and people who are renting as well. So I work with Labour MPs and others on issues like improving the rights of renters. And I also work with Conservative MPs and indeed others in making sure that our planning system works better. And again, I think it's understandable that people who are looking for new development in their constituencies want to make sure that local communities have control over that development. That's completely understandable, totally right, and I want to work with MPs from every party in order to make sure that we've got the right system.
Does that mean, after all, Mr Gove, next week that you will be taking Labour MPs with you through the division lobbies, despite the rebellion by Tory MPs, to get this through?
Well, I think MPs from all sides of the House of Commons will support what we're doing, but I think it's important to make sure that when individual MPs, people who are passionate about the environment, raise concerns, that we listen to them. I've been a minister in various different government departments, and every time we bring forward legislation, bills into the House of Commons, that legislation is always improved by listening to MPs who are doing their job as their constituents would expect in order to improve laws.
Do you think Suella Braverman's doing a good job as Home Secretary? It was a woeful performance in front of the Select Committee yesterday.
I think Suella is doing a good job. Yes, actually. I believe that Suella is doing what is necessary in order to ensure that we can have effective and appropriate border controls and deal with the question of asylum and migration.
But she didn't know her own rules. She didn't seem to understand how anybody could apply for asylum in this country unless they travelled here illegally. It was a Conservative that had to point it out to her.
I saw that there was an exchange between Suella and a Conservative backbench colleague. I think it was the case that Suella explained clearly the situation. There are, as we know, routes which the UK generously maintains to allow people from Ukraine, from Hong Kong, from Afghanistan to come here, and British people have opened their hearts and their homes to people fleeing persecution in those areas. But we also have to maintain control. There is a balance here. One of the reasons why we can be generous towards people fleeing persecution in those areas is because the British people have the reassurance of knowing that they have a Home Secretary who, outside the European Union, will ensure that we don't accept free movement, that we do police our borders.
Can you really say you're getting back control, Mr. Gove? 40,000 migrants that we know about living in hotels. They're crossing the channel in ever-increasing numbers and very few being sent back. Only 35 Albanians sent back in the last few weeks. The government has lost control completely.
Well, Suella in the House of Commons and also in the committee yesterday was clear that there are challenges which we need to address in our asylum system. And Suella, in her time in office, has made sure that the Manston Processing Centre is up and running now effectively after, again, there were challenges there because of the number of people who were coming over. We've also secured an arrangement with the French government, Suella and her opposite number in France, to better police the channel. But there is more to be done in order to deal with the criminal gangs who are trading in human misery.
What your view is on what is an acceptable level of migration? We're getting the figures, statistics out on net migration at 9:30 this morning. What's your view on it? And is the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister agreed on this? Because we seem to be getting quite mixed messages from them on this.
Yes, I think we're all agreed that the most important thing to do is to ensure that there is democratic control of who comes here. Again, the important thing here is to be flexible. We've accepted a significant number of people here from Ukraine, and I think most people would agree that that was right, that when you have a situation, as we do with that terrible conflict as a result of Putin's aggression, then people have voluntarily opened their homes to welcome people here from Ukraine.
So high net migration this year is acceptable?
Sorry, I missed that.
Well, I'm imagining it's going to be sort of 300, 400,000.
No, well, I think that we need to keep numbers down. We need to keep them under control, but there will always be years which are exceptional. And one of the things I'd say is we have accepted more than 100,000 people from Ukraine. That is not something that I think any of us regret. I think that is something that we all celebrate and embrace. And that means that the last 12 months have been, for all of us, a year in which the British people have shown their generosity. And again, the figures on migration will change year to year. But my own view, the government's view, is that we need to get it down to a sustainable level over time.
We're going to get later, aren't we, Mr. Gove, the new energy price cap. What can you tell us about that?
It's going to be announced by Ofgem, but who are the independent regulators who look at energy. The important thing, of course, is that, as Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, explained in the autumn statement, the government is there in order to ensure that people are supported with their energy bills this autumn, this winter, and into the new year.
Yeah, that's just been announced, actually, Mr Gove. It's come in at 4,279 in January 2023, so that will increase that. But as you say, bill payers will be protected under the government's energy price guarantee, which is, of course, hugely expensive. But I suppose it explains a little bit about why, as on front of many of the papers today, you're launching this big campaign to try and get households to start taking a bit of responsibility themselves for reducing consumption of energy.
Well, it's a shared challenge that all of us have. We all know that the reason why energy prices have skyrocketed is thanks to the ripple effects of Putin's invasion. The government is stepping in, using taxpayers' money to help people through this particular difficult winter. But it's also the case that all of us can reduce our energy usage by following certain basic principles. The best advice out there comes from the energy companies, from independent voices, but government is also playing its part, encouraging all of us to do what we can in order to keep our bills lower than they would otherwise be.
Have you turned your boiler down?
Yeah, I have, yes. I've tried to make sure that it's a quick shower first thing in the morning, and I personally do everything I can to conserve energy costs. But I also recognise that, people like me, cabinet ministers, are in relatively comfortable circumstances. So we have to be careful in giving advice to other people, because we recognise that there are people in much tougher and more straitened circumstances. That's why Jeremy is providing the support that he is in order to ensure that this winter vulnerable people are protected.
Just finally, I have to ask you about a speech that was given by your colleague, the policing minister, Chris Philp, recently. He made a joke at your expense, and I just wondered what your own reaction was about that. He was talking about drug use specifically.
Well, Chris was giving a witty after-dinner speech, and my view is that if we were to ban people making jokes about politicians, then it would be a sorry state. So Chris is a deft and witty speaker, and as far as I was concerned, the appropriate response was for everyone either to smile wryly or to laugh heartily.
What a good sport. You're fair game then, I suppose, after saying that. Really good to talk to you this morning. Michael Gove, Secretary of State for Levelling Up, thank you very much indeed for your time. Well, let's get some reaction to all of that from our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. A bit of a nasty question from me at the end. You took that very well, took it in his stride. Legitimate, as you say.
He's got a big sense of humour.
He certainly does. One of the most magnanimous people in the House of Commons. In fact, I was in there just last week, and I saw him standing there holding open a door for about 5 minutes as people were filing past. Yes. It was a very generous-spirited person, but it was really interesting to see that the attitude towards what has been termed by many people as this wrecking amendment to the planning bill. It's something that actually the author of the 2019 Conservative manifesto described as the destroy the economy bill, the destroy the economy amendment, I should say. Some people in the Conservative Party really furious with these around 50 MPs who have brought this amendment, who of course have judded this process to a halt. Michael Gove there trying to sort of reach out to those MPs, trying to be warm to them and maybe bring them back into the fold, walk them away rather than using more dispiriting language as we've seen from others. But also interesting that there was no clear commitment there to take up Labour's offer of getting this through anyway with Labour votes. Perhaps the politics of that, again, would be just too difficult.
Interesting.
Shouldn't they, Tom, though, as Isabel said, if they don't take up that offer from Labour, this will be seen as party being put before country, because we badly need those 300,000 houses?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very apt description. I think the problem that DLUC, the Levelling Up Department, are obviously thinking about is what goes then in the next stage of the process. Can they rely on those Labour votes through committee stages, through second and third reading in the House of Commons as well? But clearly the Labour Party are wanting to make a big play that they want to take on that mantle of home-owning democracy. It's something that the Tory party used to sort of own as an issue, much as the Tory party used to own law and order, migration, lots of the other things that we're discussing that now many people are thinking, well, do they have control over this? The Tory party in the 1950s and 60s went to the country with poster campaigns talking about how many houses they were building, talking about creating this home-owning property-owning democracy. It was something that the Tory party used to be very, very proud of, building loads of houses. And now, these days, you get Tory MPs in lots of constituencies boasting about stopping houses being built. It's the most remarkable turnaround.
Yeah, and so frustrating for young people, as you describe as well, that sort of intergenerational disparity and disquiet really growing on that topic. He was quite slippery on the issue of net migration, obviously pointed to the fact there's been this huge programme of bringing in people from Ukraine and Hong Kong this year, but no return to the days of David Cameron when he wanted to get net migration down to the tens of thousands.
No, it's interesting, listening to the rhetoric of Rishi Sunak over the last few weeks. He's got a new phrase whenever anyone brings up the question of net migration. He says he wants to deal with illegal migration first before they start talking about targets or numbers with legal migration. Now, people might say in response to that, well, what on earth are you doing? What on earth are you doing about the illegal immigration problem then?
Isn't every person who crosses the channel an illegal migrant?
That's exactly the case as things stand, and of course we're getting on for 50,000 of those this year. Although, as you were saying, the legal migration could well be into the 400,000 mark, of course comprising many, many people from Ukraine, over 100,000 people, people from Hong Kong, people from Afghanistan as well. So maybe a bit of an outlier year over the general trend. Of course, the ONS, the OBR, expects migration to come down to 200,000 over the next few years.
OK, Tom Harwood, thank you very much indeed.
Now, the RMT's union's General Secretary Mick Lynch, he's meeting the Transport Secretary Mark Harper, if you didn't know it was, later today. And it follows the announcement of a fresh wave of rail strikes in the run-up to Christmas and the New Year. So earlier we spoke to Steve Headley, former RMT Assistant General Secretary. This is what he had to say.
So we need a massive redistribution of wealth in this country. We can't have a position where a few percent of the population are taking 46% of the wealth. That has to stop. There needs to be massive taxation on people over £100,000 a year. There needs to be massive taxation on profiteering oil companies and profiteering petrol companies.
That was quite a fiery interview, wasn't it? If people want to see that in full, of course, you can find it on our app or indeed through our Twitter feed as well as our website. Now, meanwhile, university lecturers and teachers go on strike today as industrial unrest continues to spread across the country in disputes over pay, jobs and conditions. Picket lines are being mounted outside universities and schools as unions edge closer to a coordinated industrial action. It'll be one of the biggest walkouts of the entire year. Our reporter Theo Jacumba has more.
Today belongs to the union. Today belongs to the members. I am UCU and proud, and I really hope you are too.
This was the moment tens of thousands of lecturers had been waiting for. A nationwide strike set to be the biggest ever to hit UK universities as they walk out over pay and conditions.
People are realising that they won't be able to afford to pay their bills, and that's a situation that affects students as much as lecturers. We're seeing that staff at universities, a lot of whom are casualised on very short contracts, effectively 0 hours in some cases, are struggling a great deal, as are many contracted members of staff, and students are also struggling. We're seeing that as lecturers or as people working in professional services.
From today, over 70,000 staff from 150 universities will strike over 3 days, potentially halting the studies of more than 2.5 million students. But what's the mood on campus?
When the staff get paid more, the students get a better degree. Because obviously, when you're learning in a learning environment, if the person teaching you is in kind of a horrible situation, they're not getting paid enough, they're working crazy hours without enough pay, they're getting the pensions cut. It's just the entire environment's just not what a university should be. So, I mean, the kind of outcome for students, I think, from my perspective anyway, should be that we want staff to be on proper contracts and paid more.
Another concern is pensions. Universities UK, which represents 140 institutions, say pension contributions were already at the very limit of affordability and argue a period of stability in the economy is needed.
The view that we have is that we need to see how fragile the current surplus situation is. Things are fairly strange financially at the moment, but if that was to be something that continued, we would want to know what we could do to improve the pension scheme. It's not an unreasonable question from the union, and we're working very hard with them to try and see what can be done.
Campuses across the country will be eerily quiet today as staff head to the picket lines in what the UCU describes as a strike to defend their jobs and take back their pensions. Theo Chkomba, GB News.
Right, with the time at 7:18, let's bring you up to date with today's top stories.
Ofgem has announced its energy price cap. It's set to rise to an annual level of, get this, £4,279 next year. That's based on typical fuel consumption for an average household from the 1st of January to 31st of March. Customers' bills, however, will stay protected, though, until March 2024 under the government's energy price guarantee.
More than 100 people have been arrested in the UK's biggest ever fraud operation. An international phone number spoofing site called ispoof.cc enabled criminals to appear as if they were calling from banks, tax offices and other official bodies to target their victims. At least 20,000 people were scammed out of tens of millions of pounds through the website. If you are one of those people, let us know.
And a big important story here, with scientists saying a breakthrough Alzheimer's drug could be rolled out in the United Kingdom next year. But experts predict only 5% of patients will be eligible unless more is done to boost NHS dementia services to clear the backlog of patients. The drug, still needs regulatory approval of course, has been found to reduce memory decline in those in the onset of the disease.
Now, after 17 years, Manchester United could finally be changing ownership. Gosh, that makes me feel old because it feels like yesterday the Glazers arrived.
I know so little about football, but even I know the Glazer family own Manchester United.
Yes,
and even I know
too.
Manchester United fans can't stand them. The Glazers who own the club are now willing to listen to offers believed to be valued at £5 billion or more for total ownership of Manchester United.
Well, joining us now to tell us what it means to the fan base and the wider area of Manchester is one of the hosts for the Man United fan community and opinion platform United Stand, Adam Stott. Good morning. Welcome to the programme. Are you dancing with joy then to see the back of the Glazers?
We're still waking up, actually thinking, is this actually a dream? That's how it feels right now for a lot of United fans. But yes, it is really exciting times. Like you said, it's been 17 years. The fan base has been fighting back on the Glazer ownership for pretty much that whole time. We've lost quite a few fans from it, and some fans have just completely given up on any progress for the football club at all. But now this is a moment in history, probably one of the biggest moments in the club's history, definitely in the modern day. And it is really exciting at the thought and the hope that this could actually be going ahead.
What is the big problem with the Glazers?
It's so much the investment. They didn't spend a penny of their own money buying Manchester United. They leveraged the debt on the football club. That debt has risen year on year. The investment has been down. We haven't invested in the infrastructure, the training ground, the facilities at the training ground. We haven't had enough room to facilitate the women's team at Manchester United. The stadium is deteriorating. It's one of the oldest and most famous stadiums in world football, but there are cracks appearing everywhere throughout, and we are falling behind. We used to be the best. We used to be up there with the best facilities, team, stadium in the country, in the world, but we are falling behind even smaller clubs in this league right now. No disrespect to them, but Manchester United's infrastructure has been sidestepped by the Glazers, and the money just seems to be going to them. The dividends taken out of the club year on year, and lack of investment it's just been too much for the fans. And this moment now just feels like if that's coming to an end, it is euphoria within the United fan base right now.
Yeah, but I wonder how long that will last. It depends who comes forward.
Yeah.
Rumours David Beckham's considering some sort of consortium offer. There's also talk in the Telegraph today about Jim Ratcliffe, who owns Ineos, also putting in a bid. But of course, it could be another American investor who chooses not to put any of their own money in. Many argue that sometimes it's better the devil you know.
Yeah, that's very true. That is the ultimate fear. We've had many false dawns before. We know that this is serious. But the biggest fear is, like you just said, it's like who is going to take over. The plan and the structure of the ownership coming in is important. I think more than how much money the consortium, whether it be that or the new owner coming in, it's more important than the structure of the ownership. The fans have to be involved in this. A lot of the United fan base would probably be on the side of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's takeover. He is a Manchester United fan. I know he has spoke about the club and was interested in the club before. It needs to be someone with the fans at heart and the sporting side of this commercial juggernaut that it is. We're not blinded. We're not stupid. We know that anyone coming in is going to want something back from it as well. But where the Glazers run it, it was pretty much just leveraged with debt, consistently holding us back, and we can see that the deterioration of everything. Like I said, the team, the performances on the pitch, combined with the stadium, the facilities, it was just too much. And I think the Glazers just have hit the ceiling now, where they cannot take any more money out of Manchester United. The whole push for the Super League, I think, was the last straw for them. They couldn't get that through, and I think now they're looking to sell. But like you did say then, it is important that this next ownership isn't just the same thing, someone looking to make a quick buck out of Manchester United again.
I suppose you've got Ronaldo to thank a little bit, being a catalyst for all of this, or maybe not. Anyway, I haven't got time for the answer, probably not a simple answer to that, but Adam Stott, a big supporter of Man United and the United Stand platform as well. Thank you for your time this morning. After the break. Sorry, you go.
We'll bring you the latest from Qatar, all talking about football, after another day of shocks and upsets.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
7:28. Still to come on the programme this morning.
As it's revealed, Matt Hancock, remember him? Yes, well, he broke his own government's rules when he entered the jungle. We're going to ask a celebrity agent if the former Health Secretary's gamble has paid off. I fear it has.
At 8:20, as motorists are seeing a 50% rise in the number of parking tickets being issued, we'll be speaking to an expert in how to contest them. Really useful tips from him, so stay tuned for that.
You can join in any of our discussions, of course, by emailing gbviews at gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews. Well, this World Cup continues to produce shocks and unbelievable moments. Germany lost to Japan yesterday. Was I right to cheer?
Yes, it's always, I like to see an upset.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, joining us from Doha in Qatar is our reporter, Paul Hawkins.
Good morning to you, Paul.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Yeah, we're good. A few upsets over there, though.
It was Saudi Arabia against Argentina the day before yesterday. Yesterday, Germany against Japan. Probably not as much of a shock. Not the gulf between the two, not as wide as Saudi Arabia and Argentina, but still, many people thought that Germany would have edged that one, especially given Germany won the 2014 World Cup. They then went out really early on in the 2018 World Cup, beaten by Asian opposition South Korea in the group then. This time they said things are going to be different. We're going to do well in the group stage. We're not going to make the same mistakes of 4 years ago. And they started the match. Just after it kicked off, there was a political statement from the German FA. They tweeted a picture of the team huddled on the pitch with their hands over their mouths saying, "You took away our armband, our One Love armband. You've taken away our voice." So very political messaging, but as the match wore on, it became all about the football. Germany 1-0 up at half-time, cruising it. They're going to win this. The Japanese were having none of it. Two subs came on. Both of them got the goals. Both of them actually play their football in Germany. And after the game, Takuma Asano saying, "We watched the Saudi game and thought we can do it, then we just did it today." So the Japanese taking inspiration from the Saudis, and it blows that group wide open. Very difficult for Germany, who have to take on Spain next. In terms of today's action, we've got Switzerland against Cameroon coming up at 10 a.m. your time, so 1 p.m. right in the heat here in Doha here. And then after that, we've got Portugal against Ghana. That should be a good one, watching how Cristiano Ronaldo and the Portuguese team react to what's been going on in the captain's life and what's going on at Manchester United as well. And then in the evening, we've got Brazil taking on Serbia. Brazil are the favourites to win this World Cup, and Neymar, Thiago Silva, the Brazilian captain, saying Neymar's actually going to be on form for this one. This is what the Brazil fans had to say to us yesterday.
I think the result against Argentina and Saudi Arabia was something unusual, but Brazil has a really good team, and I don't think we're going to lose to Serbia.
Yeah. No worries at all, no concerns, nothing.
Oh, well, we always have concerns, not really 100% guaranteed, but, well, we're one of the favorites, so we have to be, happy to be one of the favorites and cheer for our team.
There you go, so Brazilians are confident, but if we've learned anything, that shocks are possible. The other game, by the way, today as well, it's a 7 p.m. UK time kick-off. Uruguay taking on South Korea. As for England and Wales, no real lines from the Welsh press conference yesterday. In terms of England, Harry Kane did train yesterday. Jordan Pickford, the England goalkeeper, at the England press conference yesterday, saying that Harry Kane looks good to go for that game against the USA on Friday.
Full analysis there. Thank you, Paul. Thanks very much. Let's talk to Paul Coit now. A little bit more about what's at the picture that's making all of the papers today, and that is Paul referencing it there briefly, but this was Germany taking matters into literally their own hands when it comes to protesting about gay rights.
Yeah, it's the armband again. I mean, we started that with England, and this is where it began, and there's so many different countries that actually want to wear the armband. Denmark, that we mentioned, also, they played, and Simon Kjær, who's their captain, he said that, and this is the interesting thing, that the whole political storm actually affected the way they played. and they only drew 0-0 a couple of days ago. And this is
excuses, isn't it?
Well, you know what? It's the first time that I've actually heard this one used.
Yeah.
I would have expected that maybe there would be something in there, and he says he feels so strongly about it that there it affected them.
I'm surprised it didn't affect Harry Kane on Monday. You know, all that stress right up till the 11th hour.
With Harry, I can see those eyes.
I'm
saying,
sorry.
I know when you played professional football, you never had that problem.
I'm not buying this. I'm not buying this. These are highly paid individuals, paid millions of pounds every year. They're representing their country. What, they can't play properly because they're not allowed to wear a rainbow flag? Come off it. They just play badly.
This is my view on it. When we get to that situation, I think it depends. I think Isabel is absolutely right. I think Harry Kane was fine. But can you imagine when you are the captain of England, and I'm going to put you in that place right now, you're the captain of England, and you've told, this is what we're going to do, you're going to wear the armband, and you are the one that's going to suffer consequences through FIFA, you will get that yellow card, and then you make it another one, and then you may be suspended from playing for your country, which you want to do. What do you do? And this goes right down to the last minute. So right down before they're about to begin, actually, no, we're not going to do it, because that's going to be on his mind. Now, the other side of it is where players, that is their happy place. That's when they go out and play. That's what they've always done. That's where everything leaves them behind. But there's going to be some sort of link between the two, because when it starts getting very serious, I think it is going to play on your mind.
I absolutely didn't think for a second the England team would wear the rainbow flag, because they would not want to risk the bookings and then losing key players, because it's all about winning.
But do you agree? See, there's two ways of looking at this. And a lot of people are saying, well, I think it's disgusting the fact that they didn't. But what do you do? Do you make the point, or do you go out and play and then you leave that to everybody else?
They were led up the hill like the Grand Old Duke of York, and led down the hill again by the FA here.
Well, I think the
it was
Germans
bad.
have made the perfect
I think they did.
solution.
Germany got it right.
This. Very, very clever and effective and powerful. And look, it's on the front of all the papers, and no one's getting booked for anything.
And don't forget the Iranians who we whacked. They didn't refuse to sing the national anthem.
Yes.
They'll probably get into real trouble.
Now, that's a very serious protest, and it's almost like, oh well, forget that. But what about the armbands?
Absolutely.
So, now, there's some other great stuff which is going on. Obviously, the football is great, and it is really going to start ramping up once we get to the second round now of games. England playing the USA, and it's so important to beat the USA. Now, it was Thanksgiving. Well, it's Thanksgiving today, of course, in the States, and then we're playing them the day afterwards. But there is one thing, the New York Post picked this up, and this is an argument really about, it's almost like a bet now between England and the USA. And the US Post picked this up, and I don't know whether we've got that, but this is to do with an export that we've had over in the States, and there it is. There we are. World Cup fans say the loser of the US versus England game must take James Corden. So it kind of ramps it up even more, don't you think?
Take him where?
What, they don't want him anymore?
Well, no, I don't think they want him, and whether England want him on what. So whoever actually loses the game is they're the ones is where James Corden will eventually stay.
He's fallen out of favour over there, hasn't he? Because he was so rude to those people in the restaurant, wasn't he?
I don't like it when everyone piles in on people.
I don't think they were piling in. It's just
it doesn't sound very friendly.
Well, he didn't sound very friendly to the restaurant staff. He was rude to, a bit late.
Well, if they play again, it'll be Harry and Meghan, you see. So they're going to double up, maybe.
He only apologised because he got caught out in the media.
Maybe. All right, well, we'll leave it there.
I think it tells a lot how big stars like that treat smaller people on the way up.
Yeah, OK. Yeah, I probably...
I feel like I've upset you now. I feel as if the whole footballs have now upset you.
Do you know what it is? I love Gavin and Stacey so much that I will always love Smithy.
She loves Gavin and Stacey a lot more than the World Cup. And you know what? Yes. So do I.
And on that note,
agreement.
we can end the sports section.
She loves Crossroads more than the World Cup.
So do I.
No, I'm into the World Cup now, don't you?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Come on, England.
We've got to get
and Wales.
told off.
And
yes,
Wales.
Go on,
yes, after the break, we're going through the papers with Nicky Hodgson and Freddie Gray, who both apparently love the World Cup. Maybe they do or they don't.
We'll find out.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 8 and it is our favourite time in the programme, isn't
Like
it?
this bit.
Yeah, this is when we dip inside your morning newspapers. Today we are joined by the Deputy Editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, and the journalist and author, Nikki Hodgson. Welcome back to both of you. Freddie, we're starting with you this hour, and this is at the front of The Times, and this is a sort of reincarnation of a Jacob Rees-Mogg plan that got thrown out to try and educate us all on how to save money, but it's been given a bigger budget and it's going ahead now.
A £25 million budget to tell us how to save energy. Liz Truss was ideologically opposed, we're told, to this.
To education.
As far as I understand it, actually they were told, the NHS was saying, if we tell pensioners not to put on the heating, there'll be an even bigger crisis this winter. So that was the reason that the Truss administration were opposed to it. But I mean, I think, France and Germany are doing it too.
Spain.
It's going to be, they're sort of summoning a bit of patriotic fervour behind it, get behind the country, hurt Putin by not turning up your heating. I think that, there's a crisis mode, there's a fourth phase, or a crisis mode where the government will text you to tell you, are you sure you're...
But I think it's sensible because it will give practical advice about turning your boiler down a bit. Michael Gove, we asked him, has he turned his boiler down? He has.
Yeah.
Truss's government, she thought it was a bit nanny state-ish for the state to be telling people what they can and can't do.
Yeah, I think that's a problem with that. I genuinely have a problem with that because, I understand not being in favour of the nanny state, but this is about education.
Yeah.
And if you're opposed to education, then you've got a problem as a leader, I think. This was about educating people on how they can not only save money, but have actually more efficient green policies. It's a win-win.
I think it makes... And France and Germany were doing it a long time ago. The other thing is actually public buildings, which I'm not sure whether we're going to do it or not, but I think that's in the works of, should we turn off the lighting on public buildings?
You can be quite certain the newspaper industry, broadcasters will be checking public buildings, government buildings, to see if they're practising what they preach, or are they leaving them ablaze with lights.
Absolutely.
National Grid will be a classic.
Yes, but you go around London now at night and there are so many lights on in offices that are not being used because of the pandemic for one, because they're kind of half-staffed. But also, it's just time to switch the lights off, really, in that regard.
The Treasury was lit up... I walked past it last night. It was lit up like a nightclub. Of
course it was.
Last night.
Yeah,
these weird red lights. I don't get it.
That's a whole other story.
There was do you remember in the 70s when we had the three-day week and the power strikes, there was an environment minister called Patrick Jenkin, whose son is, in fact, a Tory MP now, who encouraged us all to brush our teeth in the dark. So the Daily Mirror, no friends of a Tory government, went outside his house at night.
To check.
It was like Blackpool illumination, lights on in every single room. And, of course, in his political obituary, there it was, almost in the first paragraph.
It's too easy to catch someone out, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And I think this is quite clever. I mean, I believe they're going to be hiring all sorts of celebrities, dare I say, the power of the celebrity to try and persuade us what to do at vast expense. But I think there's something romantic about sort of battening down the hatches, turning the candles off, lighting the candles, turning the lights off.
I think people like a sense of mission. There was a cold showers for Ukraine campaign a few months ago.
Missed that one.
I tried it.
Did you?
Yeah. I didn't.
How did that
last
go?
very long. I'm not very good at it. I can't stand. I howl like
showering in the dark,
like a banshee.
What about showering in the dark? I mean, you know where everything is.
A cold shower in the dark would be too much.
That sounds like
you know where everything is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, will you
test
be
your
doing your
metal.
bit for the country?
Yeah, I've already turned the heating down, and also because I'm pregnant, I'm so hot all the time anyway. So it's a good time to be needing to be cold.
I've hardly turned the heating on, but I think that's because we've been very lucky. It's been a very mild
It has
winter.
been mild.
The last couple of days have had most people buckling to that.
Yes.
Should we talk about an extraordinary story? Front of The Guardian this morning, Michelle Mone revealing she's made a lot of money through this PPE crisis.
Yeah, well, not really revealing, it's been revealed, because actually when she was asked by The Guardian last year if she had any financial interest in a PPE company called MedPro, she denied it. And now, unfortunately, all the leaked documents have shown that she pocketed about 29 million.
Whoa.
Oh.
Her and her children in an offshore trust fund. So the money has kind of passed through a few avenues, shall we say, in order to get to her. But, she blatantly lied, and now this Guardian investigation has revealed that, yes, she did indeed. What's important is that she had asked for this PPE business to receive a contract, as, you know, lots of people were lobbying ministers during COVID, and then she herself has benefited from it.
And what does she know about PPE? She's a
obviously
lingerie tycoon.
Well, I guess she would say I'm a businesswoman, but the point is she denied it. She just said, I'm lobbying because I think it's good that these people get this deal, not I'm lobbying because some of it's going to be in my pocket.
So are there consequences, or is this just, exposed as
well,
a liar?
You as a member of the House of Lords, as in the member of the House of Commons, you have to declare financial interest. And if she's not declared that, she's in breach. Well, there'll be an investigation. Potentially, she could be suspended.
She's already under investigation, let's remember, by the Standards Commissioner. So this is on top of that. So it's not looking very good for her, is it?
It's not one of David Cameron's more inspired elevations to Ermine.
She's obviously completely ghastly. But I mean, I think the real story here is the amount of money being thrown around during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And Rishi Sunak, the bounce back loan scheme.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that was one of the biggest frauds of all time. And almost every scammer in the business, a lot of it went to sort of gangs in Eastern Europe. And
it's billions went astray, and it's not come back.
And it won't do, because so many people that had limited companies are just saying, well, I haven't managed to make the money back. So the money is like absolved.
One Treasury Minister, can you remember his name, resigned at the dispatch box in the House of Lords in protest at the failure of the government to be serious about getting this money back.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name either. How quickly we forget.
He was an honourable man, though.
Yeah, honourable.
A rare bit of honour.
Let's look at this story on the front of the Eye this morning. We had Michael Gove on around 45 minutes ago, and we asked him about some of the problems that Rishi Sunak's already facing. It doesn't take them long, does it?
Yeah, well done, Isabel, for grilling him about the jokes at his expense.
Well, you took that very well, I thought.
He's a great sport.
Fair game. But what's the Eye's take on all of this? Because they're saying that the Tories need new policies.
Well, so I think the sort of Sunak faces battle with unhappy Tory MPs story. This is the Tory party squabbles, which we thought may be sort of solved by Sunak coming in and bringing all the tribes together. But, of course, they're not happy. And the gist of the story is that they think they're facing election defeat. They think they need to come up with sort of big policies, and they all have big ideas as to what they should be. But it's a party at war with itself.
Yeah, and they can't even agree on housing. A big issue. I said to Michael, if you don't get affordable houses built, people under the age of 30, 40 are never going to vote Conservative.
And that was thought to be something that actually the Tory party can come together over.
Yeah.
But they can't because, goodness knows why.
Well, and Tories in Greenbelt with nice Greenbelt areas say, we want more houses, but not here. It's called
NIMBYs. Exactly, so where do you put them?
Yeah.
You know,
it's
not in my backyard.
Yeah, exactly. It's the old perennial, isn't it?
Well, we had a spectator event with lots of unhappy Tory MPs last night. And
Were there any happy there last night?
Christmas can't come soon enough. I actually heard someone say that.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're all...
You say they were unhappy Tory MPs, probably because you awarded Best Politician of the Year to Sir Keir Starmer.
We do like to do things like that, yeah. That annoyed them.
He didn't deserve it on his performance in the Commons yesterday. He was useless.
No, I don't think he is that good in the Commons.
He was quite good last week.
Yeah.
Or was it the week before?
He ought to be a lot better. He is an accomplished barrister.
Yeah.
He did run he was Director of Public Prosecution, but I think he's very dull in the Commons.
Well, Rishi Sunak was there last night too, and they were other sides of the
Did they
room.
speak?
No. They're both quite short, actually. Rishi Sunak's even shorter.
5'5".
Yeah.
And wear his suit trousers halfway up his leg, as usual. Wish he wouldn't do
He
that.
gets so much grief. You know, he's actually pretty much average when you look at a lot of the world leaders. He's the same size as Macron, not that much shorter than Boris Johnson. He's sitting, as you say, Sir Keir Starmer also the same height. Everyone focuses on Rishi Sunak being diminutive.
But Macron doesn't wear his trousers. Macron's very small. He doesn't wear his suit trousers halfway up his leg to try and look
but he's not as trendy.
taller.
Rishi's just super trendy.
Zelensky is quite short. It was interesting. They're similar height.
Short, yeah.
It's only America where they...
Actually, Boris isn't very tall either.
That's
no, he's 5'9". Yeah.
5'9".
Quite wide, so you don't notice, like the snowball.
Very wide.
Sorry, very personal comments. Have we got time for more papers, or have we... No, we haven't.
Oh,
I'm really sorry, guys.
I wanted to talk to you about wine.
Well, we're going to talk about Matt Hancock, so that'll be good fun. Freddie Gray, Nikki Hodgson, thank you both so much. We've got to go. We're going to give you a quick bulletin first of all, though.
The Prime Minister and the South African President have agreed to take relations between the two countries to the next level. The two leaders met yesterday as part of Cyril Ramaphosa's state visit to the UK. Rishi Sunak has hailed the visit as historic.
The Transport Secretary says he won't negotiate with RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch when the two meet today. Mark Harper is urging the unions and employers to ham out the long-running dispute over pay, jobs and conditions. But Lynch claims the minister has a direct say in the matter.
And drivers are facing a 50% increase in the number of parking tickets issued by private companies. Data published by the DVLA shows 2.7 million tickets were handed out between April and June this year. That's one every 3 seconds, and it amounts to nearly 30,000 every day.
Now, the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, has breached yet more rules this time. Apparently, he didn't consult Parliament's anti-corruption watchdog before he appeared on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. That's according to the chair of the Advisory Committee on Business Appointments. All these very formal-sounding...
I know, and that's Lord Pickles, of course. Under the rules, ministers must seek advice from the watchdog on jobs they accept within 2 years of leaving office.
So we're asking this morning, what is next for the suspended MP? Let's speak to celebrity agent Scarlett Davies, who joins us down the line. And in the studio, we have the showbiz journalist Stephanie Tetchy. Good morning to both of you. Scarlett, may I talk to you first of all? Look, just judging by my own circle of friends, by what I've seen on social media, people, and indeed Andrew Pearce amongst them, people who really thought Matt Hancock was going to tank when he went into the jungle have actually found themselves beginning to like him, thinking he's doing quite well. Is he a star now?
Well, I don't think we can call him a star, but he's definitely proven us wrong, I think, in terms of popularity. And, you know, he's definitely coming across as a nice guy. People are warming to him. It's showing in the vote, in the fact he's not been voted off. And, you know, we've got massive, iconic pop stars that have gone before him. So, yeah, he's absolutely turned it around in that sense.
Why do you think he's done it? I put it down to the fact he's a consummate politician, so he can show many different faces. The humble one, telling us about his mistress, how much he'd fallen for her. I just made the mistake of falling in love. He's been quite clever, hasn't he?
You're so cynical.
You think it's all a game? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he could keep up that facade for that amount of time. You know, they're watched 24/7. it's, you know, it's really everything's laid bare, isn't it? I think he actually probably is in real life an okay guy. I think, you know, everyone's seeing that. He's all right. He's a bit of an idiot, isn't he? But you're kind of warming to him. I just think that in politics, you know, we're all so disappointed in his performance there that we can't quite really believe in him. And I think that's the issue.
Yeah, and look, let's bring in Stephanie Tetchy in all of this. I mean, we only have to look to the front of The Guardian. Michelle Mone making 29 million from that PPE scandal on his watch. He broke his own rules with the booty grabs of Gina Colla-Delangelo inside government buildings. And then he didn't even notify the authorities before he went in. So, look, he's made a lot of mistakes. How is it that we're all falling for it?
Well, I think there's been two sides to it. I think when we think of Matt Hancock, the politician, we have a lot of contempt towards him. But when we think of Matt Hancock, the man, as he's been displaying himself in I'm a Celebrity, he's actually come across as quite endearing, honest, not diva-like Boy George. So in the sense, he's actually captured the nation's hearts. To be honest, we thought he was going to be among the first campmates to be eliminated, and he's managed actually to stay towards the final. It's because he's been a good sport on the Bush-Tucker trials.
More than a good sport. He's been very successful on them, hasn't he? He's been competent.
And I think with politicians, when they mess up, all we get is the apology statement. But now actually, he's actually gone a reality show and he's talked about everything he's done wrong.
Do you think, Stephanie, he's been helped also by the way Boy George hounded him? I thought Boy George at times was nasty and unpleasant.
Yeah, because that was quite surprising. I thought that Boy George would get to the final, and I thought his diva-isms would work with the public, but actually it seems like the public has had enough of that negativity, and we want someone who's quite positive to be the king or queen of the jungle, and that wasn't Boy George. And to me, Boy George only went on that show for a paycheck. He got the most pay out of all of the campmates, and he's got his money. Now he wants to come home to London.
I heard from a source very close to him that his fee was north of $500,000 for going in there. Look, let's speak to Olivia Atwood's agent, because, of course, Scarlett, you represent Olivia, and she was in there, I think, the shortest time of all of the contestants, so she had to pull out for medical reasons very early on. I suppose she still got her fee, didn't she?
Oh, I am not on here to talk about Olivia.
Easiest day's work out there if she did.
Oh, no, do you know what? She's so disappointed that she couldn't stay. So, and I think, actually, it's shown in how everything's played out in the cast. You know, she is kind of that missing link in there. And I think, you know, how she would have been with particularly with Matt Hancock and with Boy George. And I think she's had a great relationship with Chris Moyles. And it's a real shame for her and all of us.
Can I ask, would you take on Matt Hancock as a celebrity client when he comes out the jungle?
Absolutely not, no.
He just did SAS Who Dares Wins, didn't he, before going into the jungle? And imagine if he wins. We have Biggins on often in the morning here, and he talks about it as being the holy grail of reality TV. If he wins this opens the door to everything. He'll have a gig on This Morning, you name it. You'd be missing out.
I don't think he'll win. And I don't see him having a celebrity career as such. I think, you know, there will be definitely a level of interest initially, and maybe he'll do some more reality shows, but I don't see him as, you know, working commercially in the entertainment industry.
Who do you think is going to win then?
I think it's anyone's game, to be honest. But I think Jill has done, you know, amazingly, and I think she's a fantastic role model, especially for young girls. And, you know, isn't that what we all need and want? And I think actually she's quite a surprise contender. Owen's lovely. I think, you know, it's anyone's race right now, which I think is quite a nice thing about this series. It's not clear enough.
We heard Zara Phillips wouldn't be on the bridge to greet Mike when he comes out because her children need her more.
Yeah, because it's a long flight to go all the way to Australia as well. You've got most of the family have been flown in from like a week ago, and they're going to have to wait to the end of the show.
We'd love a little royal loving.
It'll be surprising to see who does greet Mike on that bridge.
Who's going to win?
I think it's going to be Jill.
Do you?
Yeah,
okay,
but I definitely see Matt get into the final three. He'll be there.
OK, Scarlett Davies, Stephanie Tetchy, thank you both very much indeed for joining us this morning.
Now stay with us because we're going to have more on all the top stories after the break.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online, this is GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
The Home Secretary admits the government's failed to control the UK's borders.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Thursday, the 24th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Andrew Pearce. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Suella Braverman has told MPs she's determined to fix the problem of illegal migration, admitting that the government's failed to control the country's borders. It comes ahead of the release of the latest immigration statistics this morning.
And Ofgem has announced its energy price cap. It's set to rise to an annual level of £4,279. Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove has told GB News the government will continue to help vulnerable families.
The important thing, of course, is that, as Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, explained in the autumn statement, the government is there in order to ensure that people are supported with their energy bills.
The Transport Secretary will meet with the rail union boss Mick Lynch today, following an announcement by the RMT that tens of thousands of rail workers will start striking on the 13th of December. The former RMT Assistant General Secretary Steve Headley told us earlier that the government still has time to solve the situation.
The fact is, if it's costing that much money, if it's costing £1 billion, then get the pay rise. It's only cost a fraction of that.
And new figures have revealed a 50% increase in the number of parking tickets issued to motorists, with a record 30,000 fines per day. We're going to discover the reason for the rise and, more importantly, what you can do to challenge them.
So let us know if you've had an excess of parking tickets lately, or indeed any of your views on the topics we're covering this morning. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Make sure to let us know where you're watching and listening from as well.
Well, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has admitted the government has failed to control the UK's borders.
Yes, she was speaking yesterday to the Home Affairs Select Committee, where she also blamed illegal migrants and people smugglers for the recent issues at Kent's Manston Processing Centre.
It comes as the Home Office is set to publish the country's immigration statistics later today.
Well, earlier in the programme, we spoke to Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove, who said challenges are being addressed.
Suella in the House of Commons and also in the committee yesterday was clear that there are challenges which we need to address in our asylum system. And Suella, in her time in office, has made sure that the Manston Processing Centre is up and running now effectively after, again, there were challenges there because of the number of people who were coming over. We've also secured an arrangement with the French government, Suella and her opposite number in France, to better police the channel. But there is more to be done in order to deal with the criminal gangs who are trading in human misery.
Well, let's get the analysis. Former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, of course, working in the Home Office yourself for a period. Look, Michael Gove being loyal to his Home Secretary, but most people not very convinced by her performance in front of the Home Affairs Select Committee, fair to say, isn't it, yesterday?
No, I mean, the situation is out of control, and one of the reasons it's out of control is because for the last few years, the government has been demonising the French, who we actually need to work with us to deal with the problem. Now, that's been attempted to be reversed by Rishi Sunak quite recently. I mean, there's a new change of tone. But if the French don't want to cooperate, then the situation cannot be solved in terms of who's coming into the country. The other element is dealing with those people who are here. Those who are successful in their refugee application status need to be incorporated into the country as soon as possible, rather than left in limbo for months. And those who have no justification for being here in refugee time need to be removed from the country as soon as possible. That's not happening. This is taking 12, 18 months to process applications. And this is part of the problem. So we need to be far quicker on that. Most people who appeal against deportation are successful in their appeal. But if you look at it, there are people coming from places like Iraq and so on in the Middle East who are by and large successful. They're under a threat of torture or death. People who are coming from, say, Albania are far more likely to be economic tourists.
You say we've got to have a better relationship with the French. We are giving them over £80 million a year. What are they doing with that money?
Well, I don't know what they're doing with it, but what I do know is that there's been unnecessary hostility between Britain and France since the Brexit vote.
But the hostility is caused, Norman, isn't it, by the fact that the French aren't doing what they're being paid to do, which is to try and stop those boats being launched on the channel?
The French aren't doing enough, but one of the reasons they aren't doing enough, in my view, is because the government has been sniping at the French, not on this issue particularly, but on general issues.
Well, Liz Truss questioned if they were friend or foe.
Well, she did, that's right. And you know, these are our next-door neighbours. You just can't behave to your next-door neighbours like that. So we need a better relationship, a more mature relationship with them. I'm happy to say Rishi Sunak appears to appreciate that, and that may sort it out. But if we are able to deal with the French as friends, which actually they are, they're a democratic country, same as ours, then that will help solve the problem. It can only be solved that way because once people are in the channel, then the RNLI and others have a duty under humanitarian law to rescue these people.
Would having legal routes into the country make all of this easier? Because this has appeared to make Suella Braverman get a bit unstuck yesterday.
Yes.
She was being asked by a Conservative backbencher, specifically, how somebody who has a legitimate reason to be fleeing persecution can legally get into the country.
Yes.
She couldn't give a good answer.
No.
Would that help, though, with the problem?
It certainly would help because the government's line has been they don't need to come across the channel, they can come in legally. And that was a very perceptive question by that particular Conservative MP, saying, well, what are these legal methods? And as you say, she wasn't able to answer it. So there needs to be that needs to be sorted out as well. And it hasn't been sorted out.
Well, what legal channel could they? What could they apply?
Well, I mean, they could, for example, go to the British Embassy or to the High Commission in particular countries.
In France?
Well, not necessarily in France, but in the country of origin. Right. They could go there if they wanted to.
And get their application processed there.
They could do. I mean, there's a reason why they shouldn't do. Now, that's not happening. I mean, I think it's happening with Ukrainians to some degree. They're able to apply remotely, and that's how a lot of Ukrainians have come in. So it should be possible to construct a system whereby that happens with people applying abroad and being assessed abroad.
What about these figures coming out at 9:30 where we get an idea of where net migration is at? We're expecting it to be exceptionally high,
yes.
And I think most people understand that's because 150 Ukrainians have come in and around 70,000 from Hong Kong.
Yes.
But are there questions, and does there need to be a debate about, and certainly the CBI would say there needs to be a discussion about where we want net migration to be at? Because it seems there is a problem with labour shortages at the moment and an unwillingness to accept that needs to come from overseas.
Yeah, there is an unwillingness. I mean, the economy demands more immigration and the politics demands less immigration, and those two clash in that particular way. And I have to say that what's happened since Brexit has been a lot of people from European countries have simply gone home and left big gaps in the system which have to be filled. And ironically, for those who voted for Brexit, hoping to see less immigration, are going to see more of it, and less of it from Europe and more from elsewhere.
A lot of them went back, of course, because of the pandemic.
Some did, but they were starting to go back before that.
And it's all very well the CBI to say we want more migrants here, but we're going into recession. In fact, the Chancellor has told us we're in recession, which means unemployment will inevitably start to rise. So why do we want to? Should the CBI try and bully the government into accepting more migrants coming in?
Well, I think it depends on the sector, because there are particular sectors being very badly hit. For example, we've seen a problem with the agricultural workers. We've seen a problem in the care sector. We've seen a problem in the NHS. So there are particular elements of the economy which have been very badly hit by the change of mix, if you like, of people who are in the country. And it's that one needs to be addressed. So it's less of an overall figure, in my view, that needs to be sorted out and dealing with a sector-by-sector approach.
Just lastly, I don't know if you saw our interview with Michael Gove an hour ago, but we asked him about this rebellion on his own bill, this kind of wrecking amendment by like 50 Tory MPs. He was very diplomatic, wasn't he? Kind of extending an olive branch to them to try and bring them back into the fold. I mean, he could theoretically push that bill through, couldn't he, with support from Labour, which would be putting country ahead of party politics.
Well, you could put it that way if you're generous, I think. I mean, I think realistically what they're trying to avoid is Rishi Sunak having his first major rebellion by Tory MPs and having an embarrassment, which reminds voters that the party is ungovernable and we got Truss Mark 2 or Johnson Mark 3. That's what they're trying to avoid. So, of course, he's being emollient because he's trying to not antagonise them. He'll be having drinks with them and generally cheering them up and hoping that they'll come round. But, I mean, Theresa Villiers was one of the main gang leaders in this particular rebellion. I mean, I know Theresa very well. We were minister together at the Department for Transport. I mean, she's a very determined lady and she's got her own views and she won't be easily shifted.
She's also got a very marginal seat and she doesn't want lots of houses built in a greenbelt backyard. That's what that's about.
Well, that may be true, Andy. I mean, I couldn't possibly say that when you said that.
Yeah.
Oh, I said it was the last question, but I have to actually ask you because you are being quoted in the papers this morning in your capacity in the campaign for better transport. We've got this mess, haven't we, with Christmas train strikes. Yeah. We spoke to somebody from the unions this morning. Steve Headley was it?
Steve Headley from the RMT, yeah.
And he was robust, really, saying that he was being forced to this position. What's your view on all of this?
Well, look, I mean, there's a deal to be done. There's been a deal to be done from day one. And the deal from day one has been give them a decent pay rise and in return we get rid of some of these Victorian terms and conditions which actually are deeply inefficient. And that would genuinely release money to pay for the increase in salary. That's the deal that's been waiting to be done. And I think what's happening at the moment is that the Treasury, the dead hand of the Treasury is behind what's going on. The operators, the train operators are negotiating with the unions, they're making progress, and then the Treasury says, no, you can't do that. And I think it's frustrating all round, both for the operators, actually, and for the unions, to have to deal with a situation where they've got to go and clear something with the Treasury, and the Treasury says no and unpicks what they've been talking about.
Mark Harper, the Transport Secretary, has vanished. Nowhere to be seen, not been heard of. Did you know he was the Transport Secretary?
I know Mark and I were minister together at Home Office. Right. But he's not completely vanished because I was at an event with him on Monday, as a matter of fact.
Why wasn't he working and trying to sort out this train strike? Well, maybe he is. Well, socialising with an ex-Lib Dem colleague.
Let's be generous, Andrew. I mean, perhaps he is trying to sort it out behind the scenes. We don't know.
Right. Yeah. You're being very generous. It doesn't feel like they're doing anything to me.
No, exactly. Norman Baker, always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. Now, some breaking news in the last hour. Ofgem announced the energy price cap is to rise to £4,279 a year from January, after it was due to rise to £3,549 in October.
Government intervention has meant, of course, that energy bills will be frozen until April next year, with households protected against the upcoming rise.
Here to talk to us about what this all means for UK households is consumer champion Will Hodgson. Good morning to you. So, look, this is going to be shouldered by the government, this increase, and good news for now, but people will be worried about the future.
That's right. I mean, let's be clear about what this price cap is, what it isn't. So this is the default tariff price cap. In other words, it's what the wholesale market should lead to as a fair price without being ripped off by your energy company. Now, because the wholesale prices are so high, we've had the additional protection of an energy price guarantee. Energy price guarantee price cap, £2,500. What we're seeing today for the default price cap, £4,300. It's irrelevant. For the time being, it's just a menacing spectre beyond the glass of our regulated price. It can't hurt you, yet. But what you're right to say is, it's a clue as to just how much money the government is having to pay to keep our prices affordable. We're paying about £2,500 for average usage. According to Ofgem, what energy companies will be charging the government will be another 40% on top.
And look, the government doesn't have any money of its own. It's our money, so it's still costing us.
Yeah. Well, that's the most important thing. I mean, you talked about it being a relief. We've got this price protection. We're in a historic position. Historic because even with the price protection, British bill payers have never paid so much for their energy. But what's even more historic is the government is on the hook like never before for bills up and down the country. You know, the Christmas lights in your neighbour's house, the government is paying for a portion of that. The third bath you have in a given day, the government is paying for a portion of that, which is why the most important thing the government can do is help us all to reduce our energy usage.
Well, we talked about that earlier, because there is to be now a campaign encouraging us to use a lot less energy. Liz Truss's government didn't want to do that, to nanny state. How important is it, you think, that the government do spell out practical ways we can reduce our energy use?
Well, it's completely vital, and it's not the nanny state. This is the state taking care of its own finances. Right. At the minute, they're paying 40% of every bill in the country. Liz Truss said, no, I won't tell people what to do. I think very sensibly, Rishi Sunak is saying, here's a £25 million campaign to give people some advice. But we need much more than tips and tricks around the house. Britain has got the oldest housing stock in Europe, which means we've got the leakiest homes in Europe as well. What we need is nothing short of a national insulation scheme to help people bring down their bills and the burden of the taxpayer for good.
Look, do you think Insulate Britain, in a way, has made that topic a taboo? Because you seem to be sort of an eco-extremist if you even talk about insulation now, but actually it's a really legitimate point. We are burning money by not having properly insulated homes.
That's exactly it. They've managed to toxify what should be the most uniting brand in the country. It is an absolute no-brainer. For example, if you need to have your loft insulated, it will cost you about £500, not nothing, but it will save you that in the first year alone, and it should last for 40 years. There is no better investment that you can make if you've got the money to do it. So yes, it's a shame that Insulate Britain and make people think about different things, but we can all own that term, own the concept, and insulate where you can.
Isn't there a problem with a lot of Edwardian properties about insulating them? Isn't that a part of the problem?
You've got sometimes issues with a house being designed to breathe in a certain way. Yeah. But if you ventilate it, it's fine. There's an absolute no-brainer if you've got a loft to be insulated. Right. Cavity walls are the next most efficient thing that you can do.
And it's not too disruptive either, is it? You can drill a hole and just fill it with the sort of foam that expands.
Precisely. These things are done within hours. So the disruption to your life is absolutely minimal. And again, wise tales, maybe I shouldn't use that term. There are these rumours going around that if you get your loft insulated, you lose the use of your loft. Not true at all. Insulation goes down and then new floorboard-like surface put over the top. So you've got exactly the same storage capacity, but your home is going to be a ton warmer.
How well insulated are you?
I'm pretty well insulated.
Only pretty well insulated?
Well, I've currently got I'm looking to get permission to do work on the roof. Okay. Because I've noticed that above every single room, rather every room which has got exposed or uninsulated room above it, is freezing. So you have to work from the top down, and I'm in the process of doing my time.
And speaking of working from the top down, do you think the government needs to lead by example and switch off some of the government lights, and all the big iconic buildings across the capital, or indeed the country, could turn their lights off as part of a national effort?
I think that's precisely where we are, so I couldn't agree more.
OK, leave it on that.
Very good.
I'm agreeing with me.
Good.
It's quite nice.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
novel. Will Hodgson, Consumer Champion, How to Save It. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, it's 8:17. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
The Deputy Prime Minister is facing fresh questions over his conduct. Several of Dominic Raab's former staff are thought to be planning formal bullying complaints against him. Mr Raab, who's also Justice Secretary, says he's confident he's behaved professionally throughout.
And the Prime Minister and the South African President have agreed to take relations between the two countries to the next level. The two leaders met yesterday as part of Cyril Ramaphosa's state visit to the UK. Rishi Sunak has hailed the visit as historic, which it isn't. It isn't.
More than 100 people have been arrested in the UK's biggest ever fraud operation. The international phone number spoofing site ispoof.cc enabled criminals to appear as if they were calling from banks, tax offices and other official bodies. At least 20,000 victims were scammed out of tens of millions of pounds.
And the RMT Union's General Secretary Mick Lynch, where he's meeting the Transport Secretary later today.
And it follows the announcement of a fresh wave of rail strikes in the run-up to Christmas and the New Year.
Earlier we spoke to Steve Headley, former RMT Assistant General Secretary. This is what he had to say.
In fact, apparently we haven't got that. We will come back to that a little bit later on. But staying with the theme of strikes, whilst we sort that out, let's talk about universities, shall we? Because they are just another one of the sectors at the moment unhappy over pay and conditions. They go on strike today. As we say, the industrial rest really sweeping across the country.
And picket lines will be mounted outside universities and schools as unions edge closer to coordinated industrial action. It'll be one of the biggest walkouts of the year.
Yeah, well, our reporter Theo Jacumba has more.
Today belongs to the union. Today belongs to the members. I am UCU and proud, and I really hope you are too.
This was the moment tens of thousands of lecturers had been waiting for. A nationwide strike set to be the biggest ever to hit UK universities as they walk out over pay and conditions.
People are realising that they won't be able to afford to pay their bills, and that's a situation that affects students as much as lecturers. We're seeing that the staff at universities, a lot of whom are casualised on very short contracts, effectively 0 hours in some cases, are struggling a great deal, as are many contracted members of staff, and students are also struggling. We're seeing that as lecturers or as people working in professional services.
From today, over 70,000 staff from 150 universities will strike over 3 days, potentially halting the studies of more than 2.5 million students. But what's the mood on campus?
When the staff get paid more, the students get a better degree. Because obviously, when you're learning in a learning environment, if the person teaching you is in kind of a horrible situation, they're not getting paid enough, they're working crazy hours without enough pay, they're getting the pensions cut. It's just the entire environment's just not what a university should be. So, I mean, the kind of outcome for students, I think, from my perspective anyway, should be that we want staff to be on proper contracts and paid more.
Another concern is pensions. Universities UK, which represents 140 institutions, say pension contributions were already at the very limit of affordability and argue a period of stability in the economy is needed.
The view that we have is that we need to see how fragile the current surplus situation is. Things are fairly strange financially at the moment, but if that was to be something that continued, we would want to know what we could do to improve the pension scheme. It's not an unreasonable question from the union, and we're working very hard with them to try and see what can be done.
Campuses across the country will be eerily quiet today as staff head to the picket lines in what the UCU describes as a strike to defend their jobs and take back their pensions. Theo Jacumba, GB News.
Well, after the break, we're going to be finding out what you can do if you get a parking ticket. New data shows a 50% increase in fines.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back, it's 8:25. Still to come on the programme this morning at 8:45. I'm so excited about this. We are meeting these gorgeous puppies. Not only are they cute, but they're actually been trained for a really important mission, would you believe? That their particular breed and skills makes them excellent in helping tackle poaching in South Africa.
Fabulous. And at 9:15, we're going to ask Special Forces soldier turned author Ant Middleton, you know him, about his new thriller and if he thinks Matt Hancock has what it takes to go all the way in the jungle. I hope he hasn't.
I think you might.
I know.
Stay with us for both of those items and all of the rest of it and let us know your thoughts. Indeed, send in any questions you might have for Ant Middleton a little bit later on GB News at gbnews.uk or you can tweet us at GB News.
And in just 12 months, British motorists have experienced a 50% rise in the number of parking fines put out by private companies.
Yes, according to an analysis of driver and vehicle licensing agency data, a whopping 2.7 million tickets were issued between April and June.
It's a stealth tax, isn't it? We're joined this morning by Barry Siegel, whose website appealnow.com has had visitors from an astonishing 156 countries. Morning to you, Barry. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. But of course...
I say, unlike motorists who are being stung.
Yes, exactly. The figures are quite astonishing. Every minute, 21 private parking tickets are issued, and every 3 seconds, a private parking ticket is issued. It's absolutely astonishing, and the whole private parking system is completely broken, and the government needs to get a grip and sort things out. And I have several suggestions, which I'm happy to tell you about.
What you mean by private parking as opposed to public parking? I mean, this is sort of what, supermarket car parks and things like that?
That's right, and private car parks and private land outside pubs and stores.
As opposed to street parking, which is governed.
That's right, which is governed by which is dealt with by local authorities and is enshrined in legislation.
OK, well, give us some of your tips then on how we can avoid getting stung, or if we do get stung, how to appeal.
Well, it's most important when you get a ticket is to gather all the evidence together and any photographs. If you have an opportunity, go back and take photographs of the signs and lodge your appeal with the parking company promptly. And very importantly, don't engage in rather colourful language describing your views on the parking company. That won't help you. A sensible, straightforward letter with evidence is the key. Now, I have to tell you, the likelihood of the parking company actually accepting your appeal is remote. And your next stage is to appeal to an independent tribunal. And once again, you just follow those rules that I've said. You get all your information together, you send photographs, and you say why you shouldn't get why the ticket should be cancelled.
How often, in your view, Barry, are the parking tickets issued, are they bogus?
Bogus is probably too strong a word, although there have been cases where companies have been suspended because they have faked the timestamp on photos and other documents. What I'm saying is that many of the tickets should not have been issued. After all, these parking companies are commercial companies. They're there to make a profit, unlike local authorities, which cannot issue parking tickets to make a profit. So you have that dichotomy straight away. The position is, with the massive increase, 50% increase, tells me that the parking companies have got more vigorous in making sure they catch every slight error that a motorist will make. And that's why we need to change the system dramatically. We need to have an absolutely, sorry.
No, sorry, finish your point. I was just...
We need to have an absolutely independent, single appeal body where people can appeal after the parking company turned down their appeal, and that this parking body should be comprised of only lawyers, and not only that, that motorists should be entitled to attend by phone or Zoom or anything like that to put their appeal. At the moment, you can only do appeals by correspondence, which in my view puts the motorist at a distinct disadvantage. In other words, what I'm saying is, if it should be very similar to the parking adjudicators that local authorities have to deal with, and the system should follow that. There are other issues after that. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, Barry, who gets all this money? Where does it go? This is a bonanza for someone.
Well, bonanza. I've looked at the accounts of some of these companies, and the profits are absolutely astronomical. You could run a small country with some of the profits there. So the money goes to the private companies. That's the end of the story. Whereas local authorities,
so the local taxpayer doesn't get any benefit.
Not one single penny. So.
Hate it anymore. Barry Siegel, thank you for your tips. It's important to maintain your cool, keep your evidence, and don't expect much in terms of appeals, but give it your best shot. Really good to get your thoughts this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. After that, we're going to go through your papers again this morning. One last time, Nikki Hodgson and Freddie Gray with us for that.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Isabel, Webster and Andrew Pearce. Let's take a look at today's front pages.
Here's the Daily Mail. It's leading with that story that we just covered, which reveals motorists are being fined 30,000 parking tickets every single day. What a nightmare.
Rip off Britain, of course. The Daily Express focuses on a new dementia drug which could be ready as early as next year.
The Telegraph reporting on GPs for the first time being named and shamed for failing to see patients face to face.
Time to go inside the papers now. Joining us again this morning, Deputy Editor of The Spectator, Freddie Gray, who may still be feeling a little tender after his Christmas do last night, and journalist and author Nikki Hodgson. Good morning again to you both. Is that unfair of me, Freddie?
Not unfair at all.
You've got a little bit more colour in your cheeks now.
I'm livening up.
I can't
As this goes on, I'm feeling...
No.
So rude. We're starting with Nikki, aren't we? The Express, inside the Express, page 15, no less. A really interesting story. 2 in 3 over 50s victim of age discrimination.
Yes, this is specifically about older workers. So obviously during the pandemic, we heard a lot about young people not being able to get jobs. But then there was obviously this counter-story that came out saying that people have been pushed into retirement in order to kind of make room for younger people working. So this is statistics that are being revealed in the Unretirement at Rising report, which is published in National Older Workers Week. And it says that 2 in 3 older workers expect to be treated unfairly because of their age, and 70% believe it's difficult to start a new career once they've turned 50, no matter how experienced they are. The reason it matters so much is because we've got a workforce shortage. We've got, how many? 1.2 million job vacancies. And we've got all these people that have worked for years, are highly skilled, are highly qualified, are highly able, want to work, and yet aren't being hired. So, you know, I don't understand how we've got into this situation, really.
I'd hire so many people of that age if they're up for it in the service industry because they get it.
Absolutely.
And they understand the ethos of service too.
I think that's completely right because, you know, they have a life experience to deal with difficult customers. They know when somebody's trying it on versus when somebody has a real need. I mean, after Brexit, actually, it's been a real problem hiring for the service industry. My husband is in it, so, you know, staffing is a real issue. It's interesting that there's also a kind of box out here that's explaining that EasyJet has actually said that they're actively trying to recruit over 45s at the moment, presumably for the same reason, because they have the life experience and the kind of nous to stand up to customers that may be a bit tricky.
Yeah, and they're probably more, you might keep the staff for longer.
They're more expensive. Is that part of the problem? They feel that you can actually get cheaper staff if they're younger.
Well, yeah, but again, it's you know, one of the biggest costs to business is when you have to keep employing people, isn't it? Keep hiring new people, find people, and hiring. Retaining talent is obviously the thing that you want to do. So if you find somebody that's really capable, really able to work, wants to be there, surely eventually that brings the cost down.
Yeah. How badly hit is the service is your husband's business with the train strikes?
Terribly. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, train strikes plus, you know, energy bills on private landlord issues. It's kind of incredible that all those people that survived COVID may now not survive these other additional challenges they're facing. So, yeah.
I was going to say, I think it ticks a lot of boxes to get more older people in the workforce, but I do, because I'm inherently a lazy person, I do think about retirement.
But already?
And I'm really looking forward to my retirement. I don't think we need to force oldies to carry on working. I'm 42.
You've got decades to go, mate.
No,
I've been thinking about it since the age of 18.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Well, my grandparents lived in the golden era of retiring at 60, and they had 30 years of having. They'd survived the war. They'd had, you know, actually gone through sort of social. What's the word? Mobility and and got wealthier as they got older and had wonderful retirement. And I remember vividly as a child thinking, that looks great.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, but it's not like that anymore.
We'll be working till we're 90.
I'll give you some career advice. I wouldn't talk too often in public about your wish to retire. The manager,
someone will do it for me. I hope they're not watching.
Yeah, of course they're watching.
Not today, they're all hungover. But let's talk about Dominic Raab, shall we? Prince Charles's barrister is now being hired to investigate old Raab, Deputy Prime Minister.
Yes, a top barrister called Adam Tolley, who got Charles off the hook in a discrimination case. And he's been brought in for this Dominic Raab bullying story, which is not going away. I think there are a lot of allegations against him. The Tory bullying story is going to sort of go on and on and on. I think in Raab's case, it may be a bit more serious than in other cases, but he'll probably get off the hook, particularly with this.
It's interesting Gavin Williamson fell on his sword so quickly on this, and yet I have to say, just personally, I'd heard these Raab rumours under 2 administrations ago. Actually, to be fair about Gavin Williamson as well, but
but what people who've worked with him tell me is he's a tough taskmaster. He's terse in the way he speaks. He's quite blunt and brutal.
He's got a black belt, hasn't he? Oxford blue.
Of course, he has, yeah.
He's hard. He's a hard man.
But does that make him a bully because he demands the best from his staff?
I don't think so. But like as well, I didn't think that Gavin Williamson was bullying.
Well,
I don't think those texts were bullying.
Chief Whip isn't a bully. That's what they do.
The clue is in the name.
Hired.
Yeah. But he wasn't a chief whip anymore, and he was trying to get an invite to the Queen's funeral, and he was quite rude. And I actually think no one's spoken to me like that professionally, and I wouldn't stand for that.
I found what I was more incensed about that story was not the fact he sent expletive-laden text messages to the woman chief whip, but it was his sense of entitlement.
Yes.
That he thought, I should be able to go to the Queen's because I was once education secretary.
That was the problem with Gavin Williamson, wasn't it? It was also that he didn't have many friends. He'd made a lot of enemies, so he didn't have a cabal of people that could kind of rally around him and say, oh, he's great, it's just his manner, you know. So maybe with Raab it's a little bit different. He's been more careful along the way to make some of those allies.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Nikki, do you want to go to The Guardian? Students being forced to miss classes and add to debts as cost of living soars. Not to mention the fact that all of their lecturers are out on strike.
It just seems to get worse and worse for students, doesn't it? I definitely wouldn't want to be at university now. So, yeah, this is a Guardian story. I mean, it's interesting because we haven't really heard much about students during the cost of living crisis. We've heard lots about, years ago about fees, and that's kind of like an ongoing story. But this is saying that many students are actually skipping lectures and tutorials because they can't afford the travel to get there. And then obviously cutting back on food, not doing anything that they would consider kind of a student activity because everything is just so costly. So living a very cosseted and restricted student life, which they were obviously doing during the pandemic anyway, because they were having to have online lectures, they were not living in halls, etc. And Professor Steve West, who's the president of Universities UK and Vice-Chancellor of UWE in Bristol, has said students risk becoming the forgotten group in the cost of living crisis. We need the government to work with us and provide targeted hardship funding before their living costs become so high they are unable to keep studying. So it's just kind of another reason why people aren't going to bother going to university.
Very sad, that.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I skipped lectures, but I didn't have the excuse of a cost of living crisis.
Was that a hangover?
Sometimes, yeah.
I only had
the aforementioned laziness
a week, and I still managed to skip some. Terrible, really. That was a long time ago. Freddie, you've chosen this story in the Mail about Vino Veritas, about what your bottle of wine says about you.
Well, I think this is not the hangover talking, but I think this is a fun story because apparently your choice of wine says a lot about your personality. And I heard, Andrew, you like poulet fumé.
I do like that, yeah.
I think that says that you are conscientious.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, there we are. I think I am.
I think you are. You're a very hard worker.
And you like Merlot.
Yeah.
What's
which
that say?
says you are agreeable.
Oh, I
There
think
we
that's
go.
fair.
Yeah.
No? Anyone?
When I was younger, I
yeah.
just drank anything I could afford. What does that say about me?
Wow.
Cheapskate?
I don't know. You just have more choice as you get older, I suppose.
Yeah. What's your favourite wine?
I like Lebanese wine. Do you know Lebanese
Oh.
wine? It's delicious.
Is it acidic?
Yeah. No, it's got a lot of character and body.
Right.
The Lebanese were making wine before anyone.
And what does that say about your character? Is that
That I'm an alcoholic.
yeah. What about
I'll have a Chablis when I can have one.
Do you?
I'm not drinking at the minute, but yeah, I do.
Are you missing? Because you're pregnant. Are you missing that?
I did at the beginning because I was drinking right up until being pregnant,
Right.
but actually I've been really glad of the break. I needed it, so I'll be happy to have a champagne when it's all over. But...
Oh, that makes you an extrovert, apparently.
What, do a Chablis?
A bit of champagne.
Bubbles.
Oh, does
yeah,
it?
a bit of bubbles.
Acidic, yeah.
No, it's quite acidic. I'm not an extrovert.
I'm getting
at
into
all.
English sparkling wine.
Okay.
That's very night
How
timber.
patriotic.
It's so overpriced, I
It
think.
is completely.
It's more expensive than
delicious.
champagne.
Yeah. Jim Michael Ashcroft, of course, was a Tory deputy chairman. So he's got a vineyard in Sussex, which I visited. I nearly fell to the floor at the price of the wine.
Well, I think it's to do with climate change, isn't it? That now the south of England is the ideal place
No, I think
to produce.
that's the reason he's a billionaire. The price of his wine.
I think it's more to do with that, yeah.
Eye-watering.
Should we talk about grandkids? This is a really sweet story in the Mail. It makes me feel better about the fact that I rely on my parents and in-laws constantly to help me looking after the kids. It's a good thing.
Yeah, like so many people do. We hear so much about grandparents resentful of looking after their grandchildren, but actually this is saying that if you look after your grandchildren, you're far less likely to feel isolated than if you look after a spouse, for example.
Right.
So grandkids are really good for you. They get you out and about, you meet other people. It's not just being with the grandkids, there's all the kind of associated benefits that go with it. And this was a study done at King's College London, and it looked at the findings from 28 worldwide studies on the relationship between caregiving, volunteering and loneliness in the over 50s. So grandkids came up top as a thing that you should kind of
So are you going
look
to put
after.
that report before the
Well,
parents?
I mean,
and
my mum is watching, but she does live in Australia, so there's a little bit of a challenge.
Tricky.
She's going to come over and help, definitely.
What about your other half parents? Will they
Yeah,
help?
his mum is near us, actually, so she probably would.
Make her read that, please.
Yeah. I'll just send her a clip of this after.
I think you should.
I think there's a time limit, isn't there? I think with my parents and our children, who are very difficult to look after,
are they?
I think sort of 4 hours. 4 hours is the tops.
And then
After
they need
that,
a break of a week.
They can't handle it anymore.
Why are your children
very badly brought up? I think. Yeah.
Just like
no discipline in the
Your
house.
wife's probably watching. Chris.
She is. Yeah.
You're going to be in trouble when you get her.
The children might be watching too.
My son's got a terrible habit of loving scaring people, so jumping up behind a door and going, boo. My mum had a heart attack. She had 3 heart attacks last year. I keep saying, you're going to kill Nana if you keep doing that. And he doesn't stop. So, I mean, I don't think it is good for her health.
My daughter thinks my wife is having an affair with Harry Styles. She told me 2 nights ago.
Pray do tell more.
Yeah, she said, Mummy told me that Harry Styles likes women of her age.
Can I just say,
and she thinks they're
if
going
your
off
wife
with
is having an affair with Harry Styles,
Yeah.
can we do a joint exclusive with GB News and the Daily?
The scoop.
Yeah,
The scoop.
a scoop.
Yeah.
You heard it
What
here
a lady.
first. Yeah.
Yeah, she managed to bag Freddie Gray and Harry Styles.
Yeah, what a choice. What a
player.
choice.
I'm a player.
Right, on that note, we're going to say goodbye to Freddie Gray and Nikki Hodgson. Thank you both so much. It was very entertaining. Enjoyed that this morning.
They say that dogs are man's best friend. I prefer cats. But not only are they lovable companions, some breeds can even be trained for work.
Yeah, non-profit organisation Dogs for Wildlife provide highly trained dogs and ranger training to try and reduce endangered wildlife poaching in South Africa. Let's take a look at some of the work that they do.
Guys, today is a very special day for Mary. Today we welcome a new team member to our team, our anti-poaching operation, and we welcome Shinga.
So the dogs are dual-purpose trained for tracking and apprehension. We teach them to track human scent over long and large distances, and we also teach them to defend and protect their ranging unit when the need arises and only as a last resort.
In the event of fighting against poaching, a dog will make our job easier than without a dog. The dog can track, can smell the scent of a human being, whilst human beings cannot do that. So for us to have a dog is very useful and helpful.
Sorry, absolute chaos is unfolding in the studio at the moment because we are joined by brother and sister Nkosi and Tula, who are 5-month-old Bavarian mountain hounds currently in training. And they are here with their co-founders of Dogs for Wildlife, Darren and Jackie. So, Darren, you've got Nkosi here.
Nkosi, yes.
And Tula is over there with Jackie.
Here she is.
Bigger than in the pictures, but still so puppy-like and absolutely gorgeous.
It's the ears.
Yes. So, goodness me, what on earth led you to this whole idea?
Well, we've been professional trainers now for over 15 years with Extremis Dog Training Limited. We specialised in training and deploying operational police dogs and military dogs. We got in contact with another organisation in the UK that supplied dogs to South Africa to help protect wildlife, and we helped train and deploy a couple of dogs through them. And about 2017, they decided to stop supplying dogs through their organisation, and that's when me and Jackie came together and decided we'd continue the work that we were doing because it's absolutely fantastic what these guys can achieve on the ground, and that's where we decided to set up Dogs for Wildlife.
Fantastic.
So what can they do?
Well, Nkosi and Tula here will be trained to track human scent over large and long distances.
Right.
So they will, if you, for example, left this building now and walked through the streets of London, I could deploy Nkosi when he's finished his training, and he would follow exactly where you've walked to catch up with you, to allow the rangers then to come and arrest you if you're a would-be poacher.
Because they have two noses, don't they, dogs? They have the one at the front. Isn't there a great sniffing apparatus further back?
They do. They have a really capable nose, especially the hounds. They're very, very incredible scent dogs, and that's actually why we picked them for tracking dogs.
Right, well, that was going to be my question to you, Jackie. I mean, these Bavarian mountain hounds, are you breeding these specifically for this programme in South Africa, or were these dogs that you were training for other purposes as well? And how did you get your hands on these particular...
So we bought these two puppies in at 8 weeks old. These are our first Bavarian mountain hounds, but we also deploy Belgian Shepherds, which we breed ourselves, Cocker Spaniels for detection dogs, which we breed ourselves. Hi, Tula.
Tula's enjoying herself.
She's quite busy.
Yeah.
These will be our first Bavarian mountain hounds that we are deploying across to South Africa. Previously, it's been Springer Spaniels, Belgian Shepherds, Dutch Shepherds. Obviously, the video that played, you saw Shinga and Merwi that are in Amire in Zimbabwe. They were two dogs we bred in-house, but we bought these in at 8 weeks.
And when they're in South Africa doing their work, where will they live?
They're at the kennels with the rangers, so they live with the rangers. And to be fair, they're just part of the team.
Yeah.
The rangers absolutely adore them.
Good.
And if you saw the level of care, it's just mind-blowing how great they are with their dogs.
Yeah, Darren, look, the issue of rhino poaching, huge in South Africa. I think
It's prolific,
451
yes.
killed last week. I've been lucky enough to see them up close in South Africa myself, and that may realistically become an impossible thing in the future if they don't get a grip of this poaching problem?
I think if we all don't come together, then there is a great possibility that rhino, black rhino, white rhino, could potentially become extinct within the next 5 to 10 years. Absolutely.
So how does it work? If the dogs can follow a human scent and easily trace it, do you have to have had contact with the poachers before?
No.
Or they can pick that up from the carcass of an animal?
There's generally three areas that we train the dogs to work operationally. One of them is obviously if a carcass has been found.
Because they'll often kill an animal just, say, for the rhino horn.
They will.
And they'll abandon the
Absolutely,
carcass,
yeah, it's horrific.
So tragic,
yeah, and half the time a lot of these rhinos are still alive as well, which is absolutely tragic and devastating. But the dogs can be deployed at the scene of the incident and then pick up on recent human scent that's been left by a poacher. They can also patrol the boundary fence lines and again pick up if any poachers have broken into the reserve. And then you've also got quick reaction force deployment where then the dogs are quickly sent out with the rangers and then pick up the poachers' scent on the ground.
Terrible.
Where do these wretched poachers sell this stuff? None of it comes to Britain, I hope.
No. Most of it is East Asia, Vietnam, China. Obviously, we're going to be coming into the Chinese New Year at the beginning of next year as well, where there's a lot of interest in trinkets and different aspects of rhino horn and ivory, and they gift them as to show that they're valuable and wealthy.
Yeah. And look, you've given Zulu names to these two dogs, and you're trying to get them set up in South Africa, in sort of KwaZulu-Natal areas. I suppose one of the not much discussed impacts of lockdown in countries like South Africa is they're facing the same sort of cost of living crisis that we all are, except the pressures in a developing nation so much greater that more people are actually turning to illegal and extreme things like poaching.
With South Africa, it has the world's highest unemployment rate. And in this country, we had furlough, we had means of supporting ourselves during COVID. They had nothing. So the starvation over there, people are turning to whatever they can to earn a living. Unfortunately for the animals, it's not good. If you look at KwaZulu-Natal, that holds 25% of the world population of black and white rhino. This year alone, in the first 6 months, 133 rhino were poached. And last year it was 33. So there's 100 more this year.
It's terrible.
And, we have to take action now. Every dog we can get over there with a ranger is boots on the ground that will help save them. It's really, really crucial.
They've got a really important job, those little dogs, haven't they?
They really have.
No, but they are
cute, though.
But they are very cute.
You're gorgeous.
They are very cute, and they're actually working for a purpose.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, best of luck with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Darren Criddle, Jackie Law, and, of course, Nkosi and Tula. Tula,
you got it.
From Dogs for Wildlife. Thank you both very much indeed for coming.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, after the break, we're going to hear from Labour as they reflect on the Ofgem price cap announcement and then look ahead to those immigration figures which are coming out later this morning.
Alex Deegan here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Another spell of rain to come tomorrow. It won't last too long, but it's going to be heavy and accompanied by some gusty winds. We have Met Office yellow warnings that have been issued. Low pressure has been dominating through this week, bringing spells of wet and windy weather. This is the one that's going to bring some wet and windy weather tomorrow, but it's not with us yet. We've still got these weather fronts bringing a spell of rain across the Northern Isles through this evening and plenty of showers packing on behind. Heavy, even thundery showers across Wales and southwest England, some hail mixed in as well, and some blustery, gusty winds. Largely dry through this evening and overnight across central and eastern parts. It will turn a bit chilly, but there's going to be enough of a breeze to stop too much in the way of frost. Temperatures generally dropping down to about 6 to 4 Celsius. A bright start then on Thursday, a bit of a chill in the air, but some sunshine across many parts. But here comes that next area of rain, a spell of heavy rain and really gusty winds for Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, a wind warning in place here, and then that narrow band of heavy rain for Wales and southwest England around the middle part of the day before that moves into the Midlands and southeast England later on. Ahead of that, mostly dry, and behind it, sunshine and showers. Temperatures, again, 10 to maybe 13 Celsius in the south, but Certainly feeling cooler when that rain comes along. It could cause some disruption, certainly the potential for further flooding. Those gusty winds suddenly whipping up as well. Tends to get out of the way during the evening, and then we're, again, just left with a fair few showers, but they do tend to fade. And Friday looks like being one of the drier days of this week in some parts of the UK. A fine, bright, sunny day. It won't be as windy either. Still a few showers for parts of Western England and Wales, but they'll be pretty well scattered. Quite a few showers for Western Scotland, but many places won't see a shower on Friday. Have some sunny spells, and temperatures will be about average, ranging from 10 to maybe 12 or 13 Celsius in the south. Goodbye.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
The Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove defends the Home Secretary over migrant failings.
Good morning, it's 9:01 on Thursday, the 24th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Andrew Pearce. Here's what's leading our news this morning.
The British people have the reassurance of knowing that they have a Home Secretary who, outside the European Union, will ensure that we don't accept free movement, that we do police our borders.
And ahead of the release of the latest immigration figures in half an hour, Michael Gove has defended Suella Braverman, saying she's doing what's necessary. It comes after the Home Secretary admitted the government had failed on controlling the country's borders.
Ofgem has announced its energy price cap is set to rise to an annual level of 4,279. Households will be shielded by the rise due to the intervention from the Chancellor.
And the Transport Secretary is to meet with the rail union boss Mick Lynch today. It follows an announcement by the RMT that tens of thousands of railway workers will start striking all over again, starting on December the 13th. The former RMT Assistant General Secretary, Steve Headley, told us the government still has time to solve the situation, and quickly.
The fact is, if it's costing that much money, if it's costing £1 billion, then give the pay rise. It's only cost a fraction of that.
And he's the former SAS hero turned published author. Ant Middleton joins us live in the studio as he releases his second thriller, Red Mist. I'm a bit excited about that.
Yeah, no, you are. Now, don't forget you can get in touch the usual way via tweet, Twitter or email, gbviews@GB News, and make sure to let us know where you're watching and listening to us from.
So the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has admitted that the government's failed to control the UK's borders.
Speaking to the Home Affairs Select Committee, she also blamed illegal migrants and people smugglers for the serious issues at Kent's Manston Processing Centre.
Well, it comes as the Home Office are set to publish the country's immigration statistics a little bit later this morning, around half an hour, actually.
Yep. Earlier in the programme, we did speak to the Levelling Up Secretary, Michael Gove, who jumped to the defence of the embattled Home Secretary.
Suella in the House of Commons and also in the committee yesterday was clear that there are challenges which we need to address in our asylum system, and Suella in her time in office has made sure that the Manston Processing Centre is up and running now effectively after, again, there were challenges there because of the number of people who were coming over. We've also secured an arrangement with the French government, Suella and her opposite number in France, to better police the channel, but there is more to be done in order to deal with the criminal gangs who are trading in human misery.
Well, joining us now for more on this is the former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, with experience of the Home Office. Of course, the reason the Manston Centre is now running efficiently is because it is empty, which means there are 40,000 illegal migrants in hotels in this country at this time.
Well, I mean, Manston is clearly a problem that the government failed to deal with, so blaming so-called illegal migrants for the situation at Manston is a bit rich, to be perfectly
frank. Why do you call them so-called?
Well, because people...
No,
because when people arrive in this country to claim asylum, that is not an illegal activity.
But crossing the channel is illegal?
No, not crossing the channel is not illegal. What becomes illegal is when they are deemed not to be refugees and fail to leave the country. That's when they become illegal. It is not illegal to claim asylum in any country.
It was interesting that a Conservative really made the Home Secretary come unstuck under scrutiny yesterday at the Home Affairs Select Committee, and she was unable to explain many of the rules of her own department, and, as you have just pointed out, didn't seem to understand that there were actually no legal routes into this country for those people who had legitimate claims of asylum in this country.
Yes, I mean, look, Britain has always prided itself on being a haven for people who are subject to torture and abuse and threats of death abroad. That's something which is in our national DNA, I think. And the government has continually said, we don't want people coming across the channel, they should use so-called legal routes. Now, I'll come back to the point I made to Andrew a second ago. But where are these legal routes?
Well, the Ukrainians had them, and the Hong Kong...
Yeah, they did, but that's limited to particular countries. It's not a general application. And obviously, if people don't have the opportunity to make an application in an embassy or a high commission, then they will find another way of coming across if that's what they want to do. It's also just worth pointing out, this is a major problem, of course. The numbers are quite large, but actually the numbers coming to Britain are just a fraction of what's been endured by Italy, by Spain, by Germany and France itself. I mean, we're actually lower in numbers coming in than those countries partly because of the geography of where we are.
But also, I mean, with respect, France is 2.5 times the size of Britain. They've got a lot more room.
It is about 2.5 times the size, but the population's not that dissimilar.
But yeah, we've got a lot more room. We're a very crowded country.
We are a crowded country. We're particularly crowded in the southeast. We're not as crowded as, say, the Netherlands, and they've got a high number of migrants coming in as well.
They've been putting them on cruise ships, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
I know that's
Yeah.
part of the 10-point plan
Yeah.
that Robert Jenrick has said that the Home Office is considering,
Yeah.
along with all sorts of things like repurposing student accommodation that's not being used or holiday campuses and things like that.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, there are places we should be looking at creatively. There may be old army barracks, for example, that are not being used fully that we could be deploying in that way. I think one of the issues we're going to face this century, we are facing now, not just Britain, other countries too, is mass movement of people in a way that we haven't seen since the Second World War. And we're seeing it because of climate change, we're seeing it because of migration, we're seeing it because of wars started by people like Vladimir Putin.
OK, Norman Baker, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Let's hear now from the Shadow Cabinet. We're joined by Labour's Financial Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
We're expecting those new figures on immigration, migration this morning, Mr Murray. Does Labour have a figure by which it would say that's enough, no more?
Well, I think the truth is that ahead of the next election, if we win the next government, we don't know what situation we're going to be in then. So we'll see what happens when we get into the next election. I think what Keir Starmer has set out very clearly in his speeches earlier this week is how the immigration system must work hand in hand with the skills system in this country to make sure that we have skills and training for people in the UK to make sure they have the skills they need to do jobs that are needed in this country.
But why can't you say whether, in an ideal world, a Labour government would have a ceiling?
Well, as I said, let's see what situation we're in at the next election. There's been so many changes in terms of government policy, prime ministers, direction they're travelling in and so on. We don't know what we're going to inherit or what situation we're going to have going into the next election. So we'll see what situation we're in there. But what we can set out now is our vision about making sure the immigration system works hand in hand with the skills and training system in this country.
Well, you're absolutely right. There have been so many changes in policy, also from Sir Keir Starmer on this, seeming to echo Nigel Farage in his approach to all of this. An interesting sort of populist move from Sir Keir Starmer, hardening of his position, if you like.
Well, look, what Keir set out in his speech to the CBI this week is that the immigration system should work closely with the skills system. And if you have a situation where employers are recruiting internationally to fill gaps in terms of skills or shortage occupations, that should be a signal that we need to make sure we're investing in skills and training within those sectors, within those industries in this country. And I think that's what he was setting out. He was setting out a really clear vision about how the immigration system must be connected to the skills and training system. At the moment, they're totally detached from one another, but they need to work hand in hand, and that's what would be at the heart of our approach.
What's your solution? Do you have a solution for the small boats that are crossing the Channel?
Well, look, I think one of the really critical things about small boats coming across the Channel is to make sure that we are pursuing the criminal gangs who are running those boats, running those lines, who are exploiting people. I think that part of the conversation has been missed by what the government has set out recently. It's really critical to make sure we're going after the criminal gangs. And if you look at what Yvette Cooper, the Shadow Home Secretary, has set out, and her team, they've set out plans to make sure there is that investment in a specific cell within the National Crime Agency to make sure we are going after those criminal gangs and trying to stop this happening in the first place.
And would Labour consider opening legal routes into the country for asylum seekers?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Would you consider opening, is it time to discuss opening legal routes into the country?
But we need to make sure that there are safe and legal routes for people to come to the country to make asylum applications. And I think the other part which is really important to focus on is about the speed at which decisions are taken. Because if you look at the number of people, you mentioned people coming across the Channel in small boats. In 2021, people came across the Channel in small boats, but only 4% of those people have had their asylum applications processed. There's a huge backlog, there's a huge failure in the system to get asylum applications processed, and that lets down everyone. It lets down genuine asylum seekers, it lets down the UK asylum system in terms of identifying who has a claim which can be accepted or not, and it costs a lot of money in the meanwhile. So the asylum system is not working. The Home Secretary talked about the system being broken. They've been in government for 12 years. They've presided over it breaking, and they haven't got the plans to fix it.
Mr. Murray, the RMT has announced a major escalation of the rail strikes. Your colleague, the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, refused to condemn the union. Do you condemn the union, or do you agree with them?
Look, I think no one wants to go on strike. I think everyone wants to avoid a strike. It's a difficult decision for workers to go on strike. They lose their pay. They don't want to go ahead with strikes. I think what is critical for the government to do, and what we are pushing the government to do, is to do everything it can to get a deal so that strike action can be avoided. Industrial action is a last resort, and the government should be doing everything within its power to try and make sure these strikes don't have to go ahead.
Just lastly, Ofgem's announced the price cap's risen to $4,279 from January next year. I'm just wondering what Labour would do beyond April, where the government's planning to cut off its energy support.
So look, what's really critical in terms of helping people with energy bills is, of course, the urgent help through the winter and the difficult months ahead. But at the same time, the government must be investing more in long-term solutions to bring energy bills down. We've been pushing them for so long now to get a move on with insulating properties across the country. There are 19 million homes across the country that need better insulation. We have the draftiest homes in Europe. If you invest in that insulation, it helps to bring bills down permanently. And yet the government has said they're not really going to do anything for another 3 years. That's wasted 3 years when you could be insulating people's homes and bringing bills down. The other thing they should be doing is really ramping up investment in homegrown renewable energy, because if you have that homegrown renewable energy, you can bring bills down with cheaper energy, you can tackle the climate emergency, and you can give us greater energy security by meaning we're less dependent on imports from overseas.
Okay. James Murray, we'll leave it there. Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury. Thanks for your time this morning.
After the break, we're going to be speaking, Isabel's very excited about this, I have to tell you, to former Special Forces soldier turned author Ant Middleton about his new thriller Red Mist.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News. Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Well, welcome back. You know him best as the SAS Who Dares Win Hard Man. But Ant Middleton is now using his experience of life in the armed forces for his second thriller, Red Mist.
And it is out today, and I'm pleased to say he joins us in the studio. Very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
But you've done lots of autobiographical books and sort of positivity books, but you're now going into fiction. Are you our new Andy McNab?
Oh, I'm better than Andy McNab. No, what I love doing with my fiction is merging the two worlds, the non-fiction and the fiction. There's only certain things I can say throughout my life experience in my non-fiction. But in my fiction, again, and it is fiction, but I can talk about my life experiences, where I've been. I can tell about the locations that I've been to, and ultimately give a twist on my character. The character Mallory in the book is very much an alter ego of myself, shall we say.
Okay.
So it's a good chance to not only express my feelings and myself, but also my life experiences in real time.
Yeah, and you can also hide behind some of it and say, actually, that bit's not true.
Comes under fiction,
yeah,
absolutely,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah, well, look, for those who don't know, look, lots of people will know you from the TV series that you've done and continue to do, but for those who don't know, you achieved the holy trinity of special forces, and you also were a sniper in the SBS, is that right?
Right, that's correct, yeah.
So you, and 2 tours of duty to Afghanistan. So
3.
3, apologies. So you've seen it all.
Yeah. Yes, I've done this sort of the hardcore soldiering route. You know, I enjoyed soldiering. I've done, like I said, the Marines, the Paras, the Special Forces, the snipering world, which is sort of like an elite unit of the elite. I just enjoyed being out there, getting dirty and really getting into the nitty-gritty of modern-day warfare, shall we say. It really interested me, and that's what's so good about my books now, is I can take that, which interests lots of people out there, and almost put it into a lifetime sort of documentary, or into an archive, shall we say, where people can pick it up and go, does that actually happen? Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Read my books.
You must have a ruthless streak in you.
Do you know what? We all have, yeah, I think, but that's just what I say about the book. We all have a bit of Mallory in us. We've all got that little, you know, that beast inside us that wants to come out and that needs to come out. And it's just how you exercise that, how you release that. So for me now, it's with my TV shows, SAS Australia, with $1 Million Island that's coming up, and with everything that I do, whether it's climbing mountains, but even writing books now. It really, you know, it releases that beast. It sort of exercises my demons in letting it out for other people to enjoy.
Why call him Mallory? Mallory, of course, was a very famous Everest.
That's where it came from.
Oh, did it?
Because I've climbed Everest.
You nearly died descending Everest.
I did. It wasn't. It wasn't what I predicted, but it was a tough climb. And Mallory was it's a great name, you know. And I believe that Mallory was the first to summit. You know, obviously
we're never sure. His body was found in a position. Did he get to the top?
I saw him right at the peak. And being a mountaineer myself, I know that just being at that peak, he would have, in my eyes, summited. So he wouldn't have just come down. He would have got that summit fever, which we all get. Now I just recently got it on K2. I've just recently climbed K2 as well. So from my experience and from what I've been through, I reckon Mallory was the first to summit Mount Everest, and I thought to myself, do you know what? What a great character to insert into my books.
I'm interested in the title, Red Mist. It kind of implies a little bit of the rage, a bit of anger coming in there. And look, you're someone who's obviously incredibly disciplined, and we've also seen you instilling discipline in other people and being pretty tough on that. But you've also famously lost your cool a couple of times, haven't you?
Absolutely,
I know you've talked about it. You've been to jail, you've done for assault. So someone so disciplined as you, if even you have not always been disciplined, the Red Mist has got you as well. Yeah,
like I said in my book, it says anger is a weapon, and if used correctly, it's a very, very useful weapon. For protecting not only the country, but for the people in the country. And sometimes, we lose our cool, we make mistakes, and that just shows that we're human. We can be trained to a certain level where we control our anger to a certain extent where you're on that line. And sometimes we overstep it, and I've overstepped it a couple of times. And when you do...
Was that when you were younger?
Yes, we're talking 10 odd years ago.
Now you'd be more...
Yes, and that's just through life experience, right? It's through trial and error, it's through getting things, right, and through getting things really wrong as well. So as long as you're learning along the way, which I do, which I have done, then, this is why I love sort of mentoring people now and showing them how it's done through my actions.
And I'm interested, you've got 5 kids, haven't you, and a whole range of ages. What was the youngest one? 3, 4?
21 to 6.
Yeah, so you love your kids, and that's fabulous. But you've been quite, outspoken in some of your approaches. I'm a mum myself, and I resilience is so important in youngsters, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Tell us about some of your more controversial techniques, because I've read in the past that you've told your sons boys don't cry and they're not allowed to cry, and you've also done dipping your daughter in cold water to toughen her up. I mean, I think they're great, but I'm not sure I'd apply it to my own kids.
I've never said that boys don't cry, because I cry. I cried a couple of times recently on K2, so we do cry. I've never said that. I said there's a time and a place to let your emotions out. And the one I said about my son, he was in the ring. He was doing Muay Thai at a young age, and he got hit and he started to cry, and I just said to him, look, that's a sign of weakness in the ring. I said, look, just hold your emotions in, keep them in. I said, you can have a good cry after, but keep them in, because he will have a psychological advantage over you. And I do believe that there's a time and place, always a time and place, to let your emotions out. You must control your emotions at all times. It's like anger. Anger is an emotion, but that doesn't mean that you can go around hitting everyone when you feel like it.
Yeah.
You have to control that emotion, and it's exactly the same with sadness, with empathy, whatever it may be. Control your emotions, because if not, people will take advantage of them.
Yeah, and I suppose that's that emotion that bonds you in the Special Forces, the love for the brothers, as you described.
Absolutely.
And you see it. I mean, did you actually operate out in theatres of war with some of the guys that you were on SAS Who Dares Wins with? I mean, was that brotherhood already there, or was it just because you're all
No, we came together as all ex-Special Forces, but I've got, I've just seen them this weekend. I've got very close friends in the Special Forces that's still serving, that are really, really close to me, and they'll always be really, really close to me. Just because we've been on the battlefield together. We've had not necessarily got on all the time, but when I've looked to my left, to my right, it's allowed me to 100% focus on the task ahead, knowing
feel reassured
that
they're on
they're
either
there.
side of you.
Absolutely.
We have to ask you about Matt Hancock, who is the surprise package in the celebrity jungle. I've known him for a long time, because I write about politics, and he's going to possibly even win this thing. He's done the SAS programme too. Now, I know you're presenting in Australia.
Go on, tell us.
You must know, because you're a part of the SAS family.
You put me on the spot now.
Did he do well the SAS programme here on Channel 4?
All I can say is, if Fern McCann can pass, and she failed absolutely everything, then I'm sure Matt Hancock can pass. It's interesting, because a good friend of mine, Callum Best, I know that he was an absolute warrior on it, and on the last series and passed. But I do the Australian version now, which is the authentic version. Right. So. I think he does all right.
Politicians are resilient, though.
Yeah, I think
he's done so well in the jungle.
Yeah, they are resilient, but also they can be quite manipulative, can't they?
Absolutely.
So I think a mix between resilience, manipulative, scheming, cunning,
Machiavelli, all those things.
I think he would fare well. That's all I'm going to say.
Right. Would you want him in your SAS group?
Absolutely not.
Listen, it's been a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to talk to you. Good luck with this book. I don't think you need it. All of your books do incredibly well. Sunday Time bestsellers and all the rest of it. We look forward to many more from the better than Andy McNabb, Ant Middleton. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.
Great to meet you.
And that is it from us for today. It's been a pleasure being with you,
Thank
Andrew.
you.
Back with Andrew
Thank you.
next Thursday. But Stephen and Anne are in for breakfast tomorrow from 6. But up next, Tom Harwood has the briefing. See you next week.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak.
Stop talking. My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
High migration numbers expected in the next few minutes. And of course, the government's planning bill delayed yet again due to